Hello guys, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Naruto returns Konoha with his girlfriend? If you enjoy this video, then please like, share and do comment. And also check the description to original creator of this beautiful creation. So let us start the story.
It had been a long 3 years. In that time a young boy grew into a young man. A man whose childish antics gave way to a mature side. Still at times another side would surface, his perverted side. This side came into being due to the nature of the man the boy traveled with being not just a pervert, but the self-proclaimed god of the perverts. Of course this would rub off on the boy after being together for 3 years. While he wasn't as bad as the older man himself, he was a couple notches below him on the totem pole of perverseness. With the gates of his home coming into sight, it was time to put up the serious side of him. He wasn't ready to go back. He had things that still had to be done before he could call this place home again. "It's great to be finally coming home, isn't it?" the man said to the boy walking behind him. He didn't receive an answer, only silence. "Naruto? Nothing again." The old man hated to be ignored, especially by the brat that was his companion. Turning, Jiraiya prepared to smack the boy for ignoring him. What he found was nothing. Naruto was nowhere in sight. "Damn it, Gaki. Where the hell did you go off to?" Jiraiya didn't sense the presence behind him, but he felt a thump at the base of his skull and watched as the blackness overtook him. "Sorry old man, but I'm not ready to go back yet," Naruto said to himself as he looked down at the unconscious form of his teacher. Now he realized that he had a bit of predicament on his hands. He couldn't just leave this man where he laid, but he couldn't carry him to Konoha. If he did that he would have lost the chance to leave again. It was then at him. Quickly biting his thumb and performing a seal he muttered, "Kuchiyose no jutsu," and slammed his hand into the ground. "Yo boss." A small toad said the ground before him. "Hey Gamakichi, what have you been up to?" "Not much, screwing around, chasing girls, you know the usual, you?" "Pretty much the same thing, but we can talk about that later." "I need a favor from you." "Sure thing, what do ya need?" "I need you to deliver a message for me to the Hokage. Tell her that Ero Sennin is passed out outside of town and someone needs to carry his heavy ass back." The little toad looked at Naruto for a moment before giving him a salute and jumped towards Konoha. Once he was out of sight, Naruto turned to the old man. Now that was being taken care of, he had one more thing to do before he left. Chuckling to himself he walked over to Jiraiya's pack and looked inside for the tool he would need. Smiling a bit wider when he found it, he turned back to the old man. A sinister smile gracing his face. Today was not going to be a good day. It started out nice, but by the time Tsunade arrived at her office she could see that this day was going to just suck. There, on her desk, was a fresh pile of paperwork. She remembered completely finishing all her paperwork the night prior, but somehow more appeared to take its place the next day. Heaving a sigh, she dragged herself behind her desk and dipped her quill to begin the torture feared by all cages. After about 30 pages in, she felt that little tug inside her. Her body's way of letting her know it was time for a drink. Reaching for the drawer that held her usual stash, she threw the clock on a wall a quick glance. Noting that it was only 9:30, she pulled her hand away from the drawer. It was too early to be drinking, and she sure as hell didn't need to be reprimanded by the council for drinking on the job. God, why did I even take this job? She thought to herself as she finished another piece of paperwork. She didn't even notice the bit of weight on her head. "Yo, huh, who said that?" she said, as she looked around the room. "Up here, you old bat." Looking up she couldn't see the source of the voice. God help the person who made that remark when she found him. It was then she noticed a little toad hand waving in front of her eyes. Reaching up, she grabbed the little demon and began to squeeze. Gamakichi couldn't say anything at the moment, due to being strangled. "You called me old," Tsunade growled and she continued squeezing. Then a poof and a crack was heard and her hands were filled with the remnants of a sake bottle. Man, I got to thank Naruto for showing me how to use substitution. Never thought I would have had to use it here though. Tsunade glanced at the toad through tear-filled eyes. She had unknowingly crushed the last bottle she had in her office. "Sorry about that, but bro sent me to give you a message. Sorry about your booze, but can't have you killing the messenger, can we?" the toad said with a smirk. Hearing that Naruto sent the toad to give her a message, she quickly forgot about the bottle. Disposing of the glass, she gestured for the toad to continue. Naruto sent me to tell you that the old man passed out and would need someone to carry, as Naruto put it, the fat ass back here. Tsunade chuckled at the reference to her former teammate. I guess I could send someone. She threw a quick glance at her remaining paperwork, or I could just go get them myself and escape this hell for a little while. That sound like a plan. Gamakichi nodded and jumped onto her shoulder. With him to lead her, Tsunade made way for the window. Using Jiraiya's usual entrance as an escape, Naruto was a few miles outside of Konoha, not sure which direction he should go to first. He knew that Tsunade would receive his message and would understand. Hopefully she would be able to talk the council out of making him into a Nukenin. Stopping to give him a chance to think about where he was going to do, and how he was going to make money. He realized that he had yet to receive his payment from his first C-class mission. With that in mind, he turned towards the land of the waves and began to run. Jiraiya was hurting and a little bit chilly. He started to get up from where he laid but stopped when his vision began to spin. Giving him a moment to gain his bearings, he looked around himself for signs of his assailant. Finding none, he looked at his situation. He was alone, naked as the day he was born, in the middle of the road leading to Konoha. Not a good situation, especially if someone finds him like this. Looking around, he noticed that his bag was off to the side of the road. Running to it, he poured out the contents, hoping the scroll that he sealed his extra clothes into was still there. Unfortunately for him, it was gone. I'm going to kill that little bastard when I see him, but first I'll strip him and tie him to the wall in the female side of the hot springs, he muttered to himself. Jiraiya? Said a voice from behind him. Not paying attention to his current situation, he spun and prepared for an attack. What he found was no enemy, but might as well been. Before him was the only person he truly loved and feared, Tsunade. Tsunaheim, what are you doing here? Jiraiya asked as he quickly covered himself. Well, she paused and glanced over Jiraiya. I received a message from Naruto that you were unconscious and needed help getting you back home. Where is your clothes, and for that matter, where is the little runt? It clicked then for Jiraiya. He knew who his assailant was. The reason for the attack was still a mystery though. He would worry about it later. Right now he had to figure out how to tell Tsunade without risking bodily harm. Going against his better judgment, he just got it out. He left after he knocked me out. I don't know where he could have gone. He what? How could you have let him go? You know there are people out to get him. That boy has more enemies now than most ninja do by the time they retired. She screamed while smacking Jiraiya silly. Ow, damn it, stop hitting me, Tsunade, you don't think I know that? Jiraiya said as he attempted to defend himself from her blows. I believe in the kid, he's old enough to handle himself. Tsunade paused from her beating to glare at the man. How can you be so sure? Well, he spent 3 years training with the best ninja in the world, you know? Jiraiya said, puffing his chest out a bit. Really? Could you point him out to me, because I don't see him? Tsunade deadpanned, causing Jiraiya to drop his shoulders and wipe away a small tear. That was harsh, he mumbled under his breath. Tsunade put a comforting hand on his shoulder, feeling a little bad for saying that comment. Did he at least leave a note? I didn't find one in my pack, but maybe I missed it. I'll go through it again to be sure. Tsunade watched as Jiraiya rummaged through his bag, throwing things over his shoulder as he did. It was then she noticed something peculiar about Jiraiya's backside. He didn't. She walked closer, getting a better look of Jiraiya's ass. Oh my god, he did. Jiraiya, could you stand up please? I need to check something. Jiraiya looked over his shoulder at his teammates strangely but complied. Tsunade quickly knelt down and examined something, leaving Jiraiya to think of what she could possibly want to check, and then it hit him. There could be only one thing she could check in her position. Oh lord, no, not that. I had that checked months ago. Tsunade was oblivious to her teammates' thoughts, but she did notice him sweating a bit more. She was too busy reading Naruto's note, which consisted of a few sentences inked onto his mentor's ass, to care. Ba-chan, sorry for leaving you two like this, but there was things I still needed to do by myself. While I'm not sure how long it will be before I return, there is one thing I can promise. I will still keep in touch. Once you finish this, you can tell the old man what I said. I'll be far enough distance away that neither of you can catch up. PSC other cheek. Tsunade looked at the message for a moment, and then turned to other cheek to see something written on it. Don't tell the old man, but I swapped his research for a manuscript from his yaoi counterpart. Think of it as payback for snagging my wallet in the last village. I don't want him to know till he unseals the scroll, so do me a favor and place a chakra-enhanced pinch under this message to make it fade away. Paybacks are great. Tsunade couldn't help but smile at the antics of her younger brother. He always had a way to make her feel better. With a smirk, she focused a bit of her chakra into her thumb and forefinger and gave Jiraiya a mighty pinch. Ow! He screeched, and turned to face the one who pinched him. While he was expecting much worse, he wasn't ready for that. Naruto left a message, say he'll be gone for a while, Tsunade said while putting on an innocent face. What message? I didn't see any message. Tsunade tried to keep a straight face but was losing the battle. Jiraiya then realized what she was looking at. Peering over his shoulder he could see ink. I'm going to fucking kill him. Well Jiraiya, I think it's time we headed back. It won't be long before Shizune notices I'm not in my office. Jiraiya nodded and quickly hanged into a clothed version of himself, then started following behind Tsunade. Hey Jiraiya, Tsunade said, not bothering to turn around, I see you still have that scar. At that moment, Jiraiya wanted one thing. He wanted to disappear off the face of the planet. It had been a hard 2 days of running, but Naruto found himself in the land of Wave. Staring at a bridge that was named after him. Wow, he said to no one in particular. Looking back and forth he could see the town had picked up drastically since the completion of the bridge. Everywhere was signs of a healthy economy. He could rows of street merchants and shoppers busily walking from one to another. I need to see Tazuna and ask some questions, but there are 2 people I need to see first. Knowing his destination, Naruto began the walk to his first 2 friends' graves. It wasn't long before he could see where the graves lay. As he got closer, he could see someone paying their respects, but he still couldn't make out the identity of the person. Thinking the worst, Naruto went into stealth mode. Suppressing his chakra, he jumped into the bushes that lined the path and slowly made his toward the kneeling man. When he was close enough, he moved a branch and got a look at the man. Instantly his blood ran cold and his body seemed to stop all functions. What is he doing here? 3 figures walked slowly towards the edge of the monument that kept watch over Konoha. All were clad in black cloaks and wore wide-brimmed hats. Following behind was a small fox. As they came to the edge, they took a moment to take in the view. The fox made his way between the figures, stopping just behind the largest one. Looking up, it did something that it shouldn't have. It spoke. What's it like to be home after 6 years, Brad? The figure turned, revealing blue eyes. It's good. That's it? The fox said. That's all you can say? You got a problem, you glorified house cat? The figure said with a snicker. Now the fox wasn't happy. He was put through one bad situation after another due to the brat, but he took it in stride. That remark, however, was the proverbial straw that broke the camel's back. With a low growl, it mustered all the power it could and leapt. It knew it couldn't win in a direct confrontation, so it used the element of surprise. The figure turned around when he heard the fox's silence. He knew the fox never let a remark go. He was obviously up to something. What he met was a ball of fur, angry fur. Growling, the fox bit and scratched whatever it could get a hold of. Surprised by the attack, the figure was oblivious that he was falling back. Driven by the force of the fox's attack, he took one step back then another. To his surprise, the ground had ended and he felt himself falling. His attacker didn't let up though, content in an attempt to remove his earlobe. His companions watched the show. This was a usual thing. Carefully they edged forward and peered over the cliff. The larger of the 2 snickered at the sight, but the smaller one gave a shrug. Giving one last look, they turned and headed down the path that led to the village. They would meet their friend at the bottom. 6 years prior. Naruto stood there in fear. What is he doing here? It would appear he is paying his last respects to his friend, a voice said from behind him. Naruto turned his head slowly, his neck creaking in protest, to find himself staring at the face of one Itachi Uchiha, who at the moment was happily munching a stick of Pocky. Dumbfounded in horror, he just stood there gaping. Then the unthinkable happened. The man held out a box. Pocky? Naruto couldn't believe it. A man feared across the land, one who wiped almost all of his clan in a night, was offering him candy. He heard stories about taking candy from strangers, but this wasn't really a stranger and there wasn't a van in sight. Speaking of which, what the hell is a van? Naruto thought to himself. Shakily he accepted and took a stick and slowly began to eat it. He turned his attention back to the large man. After a moment he stood up and turned to the bush Naruto and Itachi was in. You two can come out now. Slowly the two stood up and walked out. Naruto made sure to keep a fair amount of distance between the shark man, while Itachi walked up to him. After a moment, Naruto pointed at the large man. What are you doing here? Paying my respects, Kisame said solemnly. Naruto glanced at him for a moment then looked at Itachi. You? Pocky Festival. Naruto just stared at the smaller of the two. How can I be sure you two aren't deceiving me? For all I know, you could be planning to capture me for the Akatsuki. Kisame looked at the boy. You don't have to worry about that. Akatsuki is no more. What? Kid, sit down, said Itachi. This going to take a while to explain. Quote. Naruto looked at the man for a moment before taking a seat. Itachi began the lengthy explanation of the fall of Akatsuki. Naruto, being the poster child for sufferers of ADD, began to think about other things. Glancing at Kisame, he had a thought. Are those things on his face gills? Can he breathe underwater? Maybe he can talk to fish. Man, that would be awesome. I would love to be able to talk to fish. You understand now, Naruto? Itachi asked. Huh, Naruto said as he was pulled from his thoughts. What? Itachi just stared at him, his left eye ticking. Kisame let out a guffaw. Kid, let me give you the short version, Kisame said. The leader betrayed us, all of us. He told us that we would help reform the world. What he didn't tell us was for that to happen, we would have to be sacrificed. I don't know about you, but I sure as hell don't want to reform a world I can't be part of. The 9 of us banded together and went against the leader, killing him. After that we parted ways. The only reason me and Itachi traveled together is because we're friends. So you're not here to capture me? Nope. You sure? Naruto asked, not quite trusting these two yet. Itachi's tic became a nervous twitch, affecting the left side of his face. Blinking out of existence, he appeared next to Naruto. Grabbing him by the neck, he began to shake him like a rag doll. You goddamn idiot! He screamed as he continued to choke Naruto. How many ways do we have to tell you? We're not here for you anymore. Okay, I get it. Naruto grunted out as he tried to escape Itachi's grasp. I believe you. You can let me go. Itachi dropped him and began to pace, mumbling and throwing his arms up every few seconds. Naruto sat there, checking his neck for any lasting damage. He didn't notice Kisame walking up to Zabuza's grave. Hey kid, catch, Kisame said. Naruto, who was pulling himself off the ground, wasn't paying attention. What? Oof. Kisame chuckled at the sight of Naruto being crushed by Zabuza's sword. What the hell, man? Naruto said as he pushed the sword off himself. Kid, I was friends with Zabuza. He wanted that sword to go his son someday or someone who was like a son to him. That doesn't explain why you gave it to me. What about Haku? 1. Kisame gestured to grave next to Zabuza's. Haku is dead. 2. Haku was a girl. Naruto just gaped. Haku was a girl? She told me that she was a boy. Kid, I knew Haku since Zabuza found her. Itachi himself found out the hard way. Itachi, who was still ranting about stupid blonde brats, paused for a moment and shuddered. Huh? Kisame walked over to Naruto and whispered into his ear. Itachi walked in on her while she was in the bath. Let's just say she kept those needles on her at all times and Itachi is lucky to still be able to have kids. Naruto nodded, unconsciously holding his boys. It was true that hell hath no fury like a woman. Okay, I understand that, but how am I going to be able to use his sword? I don't know anyone who uses something like this, Naruto said as he lifted the blade, which weighed as much as him. That kid is where I come in, Kisame said as he placed his hand on Naruto's shoulder. You helped Zabuza regain his humanity in the end. It's the least I could do. Naruto looked up at the man. Being witness to a side of Kisame few have seen. Now kid, it's time to explain yourself. What are you doing out here alone? You're not a missing ninja, are you? Naruto stood there for a moment then began to nervously scratch his head. Not exactly. Kisame stood there listening to Naruto explain. He was joined by Itachi midway. After about 20 minutes, he finished his recap on the last 3 years of his life. Itachi nodded while Kisame was dumbfounded. Jiraiya really peeps? One would think that he would be more serious, being a Sannin. The old man is a super pervert, Naruto told them. He's a thief as well. He robbed me many times. Naruto was about to continue, but his stomach interrupted. Growling due to the lack of food for 2 days. I think it's time to head back. You're hungry, I'm hungry. I'm sure Mr. Stoic is hungry as well, Kisame said with a smile. Naruto nodded. Kisame reached into his bag and pulled out a belt. With a few adjustments, he fashioned a makeshift sword holder for Naruto. With that completed, the three made their way towards the village. Once it was in sight, Naruto could see a banner proclaiming that there was indeed a Pocky festival happening. The silence was broken when a giggle erupted from the normally solemn Uchiha. Seeing this, Naruto and Kisame both took a step back, giving each other a look that clearly said, "Hide your wallet." Once they entered the town, Itachi separated and ran, skipped to the concession stands, while Kisame and Naruto just stared at the scene. "So kid, what do you feel like eating?" "Your treat, of course," the man said with a grin, revealing his pointed teeth. Naruto thought for a moment. He couldn't say no. This man was going to train him in the use of large swords, but he wasn't sure if he would have enough for anything more than ramen. That's it, ramen is cheap and wholesome. He can't bitch because he isn't the one footing the bill. "Ramen. Sounds good, I know a place." Naruto grinned and followed the man. About 10 minutes later, both could be found at a booth happily slurping away at noodles. When they had arrived, the owner along with his daughter greeted them warmly. Oddly enough, both the owner and his daughter resembled Tucci and Ayame from home. Must be distant relatives, Naruto thought with amusement as he worked his way through his 10th bowl. Kisame was keeping pace with Naruto the whole way. After a moment he stopped and turned to Naruto. "Hey kid, I have something I've been wondering about." Naruto mumbled through a mouthful of foods. "Do you only eat ramen?" Naruto looked at him for a second and stopped eating. Sadness graced his face. "I take it you know about me?" Naruto asked the man, realizing that it was a stupid question. "Of course he knows about what I am. I mean, he tried to capture me. Well, in my hometown, people treated me like shit. I lived in an orphanage till they threw me out. Then I had to live on my own. The old man took care of me best as he could, but that wasn't much due to the assholes on the council. I had an allowance and was given an apartment, but other than that I had to fend for myself. Most stores wouldn't let me buy things, and those that did either overcharged me, or let me get crap. Hence," he gestured to his jacket, "I wasn't an idiot. I know orange is a horrible color for a ninja, but it was all I could get. Eventually it grew on me, turned out to be my favorite color." He paused to get another bite and to let the information sink in. "Now for ramen, when I was living on my own, I had to shop for myself. None of the grocers would let me buy anything that I needed. So I did most of my shopping at a small convenience store run by a nice old woman. She was always nice to me, but I think it was because she was very nearsighted and couldn't tell who I really was. Then there was old man Tucci. He ran a ramen stand near my home. He was genuinely nice. He saw me for who I really was. Just some kid, not a demon as the others did. It too grew on me." Kisame just stared at the boy. A kid young as he was should not have to be put through that. He could relate with a little bit. He was the outcast when he was a child. In actuality, his whole clan was. The males always took on a shark-like appearance. The other kids and villagers were scared of him, but he never went through as much heartache as the boy next to him did. He at least had a family to go back to. Naruto didn't. "Well kid, you're not in your village anymore. You don't have to subsist on ramen anymore. You need real food. You're scrawny, so get some protein in your system. You're short, get more calcium. Buy some new clothes. Just be yourself." Naruto looked up the man, gaining a newfound respect for him. Finishing his bowl, he asked for the check. Paying for his and Kisame's meal, he noticed a piece of paper tucked into his change. As he walked, he opened it up. Written on it was a number followed by a name, Akame. My god, her name is even similar, Naruto thought to himself, stopping to throw the young girl a glance. She blew a kiss, gave Naruto a suggestive wink. Why do I sense this is going to turn out to be a bad thing? Naruto thought as he turned back. Kisame, who watched this take place, started to smirk. Turning into quite the lady killer, aren't we? Naruto tried to hide his blush but couldn't, so he did the next best thing. He took a page from Sasuke's book and grunted. Ah, think of it, soon girls will be throwing themselves at you, Kisame said, staring off into the distance to add some dramatic effect. I think it's about time to find that nut I call a partner and head in. You got a place to stay for the night? Naruto looked at the man, and felt the weight of his wallet. The meal had almost emptied his wallet. He knew he didn't have enough for an inn. He shook his head. Well, Itachi and I are staying with an acquaintance. I'm sure he wouldn't mind letting you stay for a few days. Cool. Speaking of acquaintances, here comes Itachi now. Naruto looked down the street and saw Itachi running towards them, still in a sugar high. You guys aren't going to believe it. They had so many kinds of Pocky and free samples. That's great, but it's time we head back. Itachi pouted at this. Listen, I'm sure the festival will still be going on tomorrow. Itachi nodded sadly and followed Kisame along with Naruto. Soon they were standing outside a large house. Naruto was in awe of the place. Who lives here? I mean, this place is friggin' huge. Kisame grinned a little when he looked at the boy. Just wait and see. Hey you old bastard, open the damn door. After a minute, footsteps could be heard walking to door with more than a bit of muttering. A moment later the door opened. You, two voices shouted simultaneously. You, said two voices simultaneously. Kisame looked back and forth from Naruto and Tazuna. I take it you two know each other. This old fool was the cause of my first serious mission. Who you calling old, you brat? Tazuna barked as veins on his forehead made themselves known. Speaking of the mission, you still haven't paid for it yet. The Hokage told me to send it when my country could afford it. I sent the money yesterday. Shit, Naruto muttered to himself. I'd say from the look of you that you're hard up for money. That and the fact you came here with fish face and the mute. Kisame bristled at the comment while Itachi just stood there with a neutral expression. Why don't you three come in and tell me the situation? He said as stepped aside to let the three pass. Just be quiet, Inari and Tsunami are sleeping. The three nodded and followed Tazuna into the parlor. Naruto took a seat on one of the chairs near the fireplace while Kisame flopped down on the couch. Itachi just leaned against the wall. Okay, why don't you explain to me why you're here and with those two? Naruto nodded and began to talk about the time since he left to the point where he arrived at Tazuna's house. It was half an hour later when he finished. Tazuna just stared at the boy while the information sank in. After a couple minutes he finally spoke. So you're now on a training journey after finishing one with Jiraiya. Kisame is going to train you in the use of Zabuza's sword, and you're low on cash? That's pretty much it in a nutshell. Tazuna stroked his beard solemnly as he contemplated something. After a moment a plan came to fruition. Well Naruto, I guess I can let you stay here with those two and help you with money. Awesome, but you're not going to get either for free. You're going to have to work for it. Think of it as a trade. I'm cool with it, so what do you need? Bodyguard or something? Tazuna chuckled darkly, you'll see in the morning. Naruto didn't like the look the old man had, but he couldn't complain. He was going to give him room and board. He knew that he needed to change the subject. Tazuna, can I ask you something? How do you know Kisame and Itachi? Well, they took care of a bandit problem we had a few months ago. I'm sure they can explain it better than I can. Naruto looked at Kisame first. They attacked our camp, we couldn't let it slide, Kisame told him. Naruto nodded and looked at Itachi. They stole my Pocky. Naruto was about to say something but was interrupted by Tazuna. I think it's time to head to bed. Naruto, you will be bunking with those two in the room next to Inari's. Back to the present. Naruto, can I ask you something? Kisame asked. Yes'm? Why are we heading into town now? I mean, you're not supposed to meet with the Hokage till tomorrow. Well, I don't know about you, but I think I can speak for Itachi and myself when I say this. Neither of us wants to camp out if we can help it. Kisame looked hurt at this comment. He couldn't understand how people could hate camping out. Being out in the real world surrounded by nature was surely better than spending time in a city. Anyways, my apartment is close by. According to the old bag, it should still be vacant. I mean, who wants to live in the place the demon did? He said with a sad chuckle. Listen kid, people fear what they don't understand. It's the nature of you humans, the fox said, hoping to lift the boy's spirits a bit. Whatever fuzz but, it's only a few blocks away so we should hurry. I know people can't recognize us but the Anbu might and I don't feel like hurting people tonight. Kisame and Itachi nodded while Naruto lifted the mask that was around hanging under his chin. When that was done, Naruto led the way to his old home. As he walked, he couldn't help being amazed at how much the village has changed over the years. Apparently Tsunade was doing something right as Hokage for the village to be this prosperous. After a few minutes of walking, the four were walking through Naruto's old neighborhood. It changed the most in these past 9 years. Gone were the signs of the lower-class neighborhood. Replaced with buildings that looked new, with stores taking up the lowest floors in most of them. Soon they were near the corner that Naruto's apartment was around. Stopping and turning, trying to build up dramatics, Naruto spoke. "Around this corner, my boys, is the place I called home for 7 hellish years. The one and only home of Naruto Uzumaki," Naruto said with an eye grin. Turning back around, Naruto turned around the corner, only to be met with something he would never expect. He gaped along with Kisame as he stared at the sight. The fox was currently on the ground rolling in laughter. Gone was his apartment, the only place he could have called home. Replaced by a massive snack food store. It was Itachi who said the name of the store out loud. Yuka's House of Pocky. Naruto just stared at the abomination. The last letter he received from Tsunade told him that his home was still around and that she would take care of it. She didn't mention it being replaced with a Pocky store. Naruto's thoughts were interrupted as he was hugged from behind. "Naruto, you beautiful man. Why didn't you tell me you lived in the greatest store in existence?" Naruto just stared in disbelief at the man who was now rubbing his face into his chest. Kisame and the fox just looked at the two, trying to contain their laughter, but it was what happened next that ended it for them. "Naruto," Itachi bent down on one knee, pulling out a ring from God knows where. "Will you marry me?" Naruto didn't respond. He was speechless. Not from joy, mind you, but from the rage of seeing his home not in the condition that he left it in. "I'm going to kill that old bitch," he roared, scaring Itachi, who decided that it would be best to slip into the store and see their selection. Naruto knew he had to see Tsunade now. This wasn't something he could let go. It was then that he noticed Itachi sneaking off towards the store. "Where the hell do you think you're going?" Itachi stopped and looked at Naruto, then back towards the store. He couldn't have been more obvious. "I'm going in." "Like hell you are. All of you are going to come with me to the Hokage's tower. She is going to explain to me why my apartment's gone." "Do we have to?" "You don't need the three of us," whined Itachi. "Yes I do. You three don't get a say in the matter." The fox and Kisame nodded, while Itachi began to shed tears. With a growl from Naruto, Itachi regained his composure and nodded. Soon they were making their way across the rooftops in the direction of the tower. After 10 minutes they were there. What surprised Naruto was the lack of personnel. The building seemed to be run by a skeleton crew of workers. The four were able to sneak in easily. After going up a few flights of stairs they were in the hall that held the Hokage's office. Out front of the door was a single Anbu. Looking bored out of his mind. "Man, I wish something interesting would happen around here," he mumbled to himself, but loud enough for Naruto to hear. "Well, I guess you're in luck today," Naruto said as he walked toward the guard, still enraged. "Who the hell are you? What do you want?" "Well, my companions," he gestured to the three, "and myself are here to see the Hokage." "I take it from the look of you guys, that you don't have an appointment?" the man said as he took on a fighting stance. Naruto just shrugged and disappeared, only to reappear next to the guard. "How did you?" The man never had a chance to finish his sentence as Naruto backhanded him. Kisame winced as he watched the man hit the wall. "Christ, you didn't have to hit him that hard." Naruto turned and glared at him. "You say something?" Kisame shook his head quickly, not wanting to be on the receiving side of Naruto's wrath. Good. Today was another boring day at the office for Tsunade. All she ever did was paperwork and hand out missions. She would be brought out of her lapse with the sounds of confrontation coming from outside the door. As quickly as it started, it ended with a large thump coming from the side of the building. She quickly prepared to defend herself as she waited for the attackers to come. It was then that the door flew at her, it being kicked off its hinges. She knocked it away from her and sent it through the window behind her. As she turned towards the door, she saw 3 people walk in followed by a fox. "Who are you? What do you want?" No answers came to her, so she did what she normally did. She got physical. Jumping over her desk, she rushed to the one she assumed was the leader and slugged him with all her strength. All she accomplished was to knock off his hat. "Well, that's a new way to greet someone after 9 years, isn't it, Ba-chan?" the man said with a smirk under his mask. Tsunade just stared at the man. Her punch did nothing, not even getting a flinch out of the man. It was then she noticed something about him. He had blonde hair and eyes a shade of blue that she knew only 2 people in the world had. One of them being dead for over 20 years. "Naruto? The one and only," the man said as he pulled down his mask and grinned. "My God, you've changed," Tsunade said, realizing that she had to tilt her head back to look him in the face. "I think it's time for pleasantries to end. Naruto said as he replaced his grin with his serious look. You are going to explain to me why my apartment is gone and replaced with a fucking candy store. Huh? You heard me, I want explanations, now. Tsunade looked at the man for a moment, never having seen a serious side of him before. You'll get it after you introduce your friends. Naruto nodded and turned to his friends. The big one is Hoshigaki Kisame. The small one is Uchiha Itachi. The two removed their hats and cloaks while Naruto gestured to Fox, and that is Kyuubi. The three bowed as Tsunade just stood there stupefied. She had not one but two S-class criminals in her presence along with the greatest known demon in existence. Now are you going to tell me what happened to my apartment? Tsunade looked back to Naruto, trying to think of an excuse. Naruto didn't need to know that the store owner bribed her into letting him purchase the property. Thinking quickly, she came up with something. The council did it. What? How could you let those old bastards give away my home? I tried to stop them but they overruled me. I had to let it pass. Naruto didn't hear her. He was currently plotting how to get back at the bastards. Itachi on the other hand noticed something was amiss. He could see the uneasiness in the woman. There's some wrong with this situation. The council doesn't have any say in civilian matters, besides my Pocky sense is tingling. Scanning the room, he noticed something peculiar about the one wall. Activating his Sharingan discreetly, he looked closer at the wall. What he realized was that it was a false wall, hidden with a simple genjutsu that most would overlook. He inched closer to it, trying to not alert Tsunade to what he was doing. Tsunade was impressed with her ability to lie, but she couldn't believe that Naruto bought it. While she was watching Naruto grumble away, she noticed movement from the corner of her eye. She turned to see Itachi inching towards the wall that had her stash. What do you think you're doing? She asked the man. Itachi looked at her and knew that he was busted, but he wasn't going to stop now. Stepping forward, he pressed his palm against the wall and forced some chakra into it. Instantly the genjutsu was dispelled, revealing a door. Opening it quickly, he saw several large cases. Naruto noticed the look of distress on Tsunade and the pure glee of Itachi. Cautiously, he walked over to Itachi and saw what he was staring at. Before him stood cases of what Naruto assumed was Pocky, if the name of the company on the boxes was any indication. Yuka. Hey Kisame, isn't that the name of place where my apartment used to be? Kisame nodded. It then dawned on Naruto, before him were cases of Pocky, hidden in a genjutsu. The pieces seemed to fall in place. You didn't, he looked at the older woman who wouldn't meet his gaze, you did. I'm sorry Naruto, but the deal was too sweet to pass up. I'd have to agree with her Naruto, Itachi said as he happily munched on a stick of pilfered Pocky. I mean this is quad chocolate Pocky. The company who makes this stuff only makes so many units per year. I mean I never thought I would see it, much less have a chance to eat some. Tsunade nodded in agreement with Itachi till she realized that he was eating away her stash. Hey, quit eating that, she screeched as he attempted to pull the box away from Itachi, who refused to give it up. Naruto watched the two struggle for a minute before pulling them apart. Okay, now that I know my apartment, which you told me still existed, was worth a few cases of sweets, I have no place to stay now. He pointed at Tsunade. How are you going to rectify this? Tsunade looked at the boy for a moment before speaking. Naruto, you knew that I sent for you, but do you know the reason? Naruto simply shook his head. Well, it's about your parents. What about them? Do you know who they were? Do you know who your father or mother was? Kisame. Kisame nodded to his younger friend. Reaching into his cloak, he pulled out a marker and stepped over to the picture of the Yondaime. Drawing whiskers onto his face, the man turned into a spitting image of Naruto. Tsunade just stood there staring at what Kisame has done. Come on Ba-chan, even I'm not that stupid. I mean it was obvious. How? You think the fourth Hokage would sacrifice someone else's child? He wouldn't do that to some family. Also Jiraiya kind of let it slip. He what? I'm going to skin him alive next time I see him. Wait a minute, when did you see Jiraiya? She asked. He met up with us a few times, ended up traveling with us for about a year. Learned a lot of new things, especially seals, that's the reason why Fuzz Bud over there is out and about. The fox just snarled at the comment, but decided against attacking him. So, I know who my dad was. So do I get to use his house or something? I mean it's the least you could do. I sorry Naruto, but Minato didn't leave a house behind. He was the only other member of the Namikaze clan besides you. He didn't bother set up a clan housing district. Naruto just sighed as he heard this. If it isn't one kick in the balls, it's another. Story of my life. But, he did leave behind a large plot of land outside the village to be used in any way you see fit. Naruto perked up when he heard this. Well, at least my old man did something right. Tsunade glanced at the clock on the wall, noting the time. Reaching into her desk, she pulled out a scroll and tossed it to Naruto. Inside is the deed and directions how to get there. I don't mean to be blowing you off, but I have an important meeting I need to get to. We'll talk more tomorrow, so be here at 5 p.m. Naruto nodded and turned to leave with Kisame and Kyuubi following him. Itachi was still filling the pocket of his cloak with Pocky before he followed the others. Tsunade watched them leave before reaching into desk. Pulling out a box, she began to munch. Today was not a good day for one Hyuga Hanabi. It started out nice, but changed for the worse when she got out of her morning shower. When she went to get her clothes from her closet, she found all but one thing gone. The only thing left was the gift she was given by Anko on her 16th birthday. Which was an outfit similar to what she wore. With nothing else to wear, she had to put it on. Christ, if I knew Hinata would resort to this, I wouldn't have borrowed her personal massager. 1. And that picture of the boy who defeated Neji at the Chunin exams. Now I'm running late for the meeting. Can this day get any worse? It indeed could, for Hanabi tripped on a piece of roofing tile, causing her to fall towards the ground. Shit. Naruto was walking ahead of others. He since replaced his mask and hat and was now reading through the scroll. According to it, his father owned almost 50 acres of land in the forest. Hey Kisame. Yeah? We got 50 acres to play around with. Guess we're going to have to build our own house? Itachi asked. Well, I figured you guys would be staying with me. I mean, you guys are the closest things I have to brothers. Kisame and Itachi smiled and nodded. Naruto kept walking when he heard a voice. Shit, one of you guys say something? Naruto asked before the world went black. Hanabi was expecting pain, at least a broken limb, but she didn't feel any. Looking around, she saw that she was indeed on the ground. Next to her stood two men wearing cloaks and straw hats. Next to them sat a fox that appeared to be grinning. It was then she sensed movements from under her. Aunt Eve. Hanabi looked down and realized what had broken her fall. She also realized that she was literally sitting on the man's face. She began to blush furiously and quickly got off him and began to apologize. I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to land on top of you. Naruto just laid there, trying to regain his breath. After a moment he got up and looked at the girl. She looked familiar but couldn't quite place her. He then noticed her eyes, they were just like Hinata's. Must be a relative, he thought to himself. No harm done, he said, dusting himself off and flashing the girl a smile she couldn't see. Looking down he saw that his hat was ruined, it being crushed in the fall, and began to frown. Hanabi nodded as she met his gaze. Instantly she was entranced by his eyes. They were such a beautiful blue. My god, they're gorgeous, she thought to herself. She glanced at her watch and realized the time. Shit, I'm late. I'm sorry for falling on you, but I've got to go. Naruto nodded to her as she turned to jump back to the rooftops. What a strange girl, Naruto thought as he watched her jump from roof to roof. Well boys, I think it's time we go get ourselves a drink or dozen. The meeting hall was filled with kunoichi from all the ninja villages. There were even a few female civilians from the village as well. All were busy making small talk with each other. It was when a sweating Hanabi burst through the doors that the place grew silent. All eyes were on her. Looks like I made it in time, Hanabi thought to herself as she looked in the room. She spied her sister in the front of the room snickering at her appearance. Next to her were Ino, Sakura, Tenten, and Tamari. Quietly she walked up to them and took a seat next to Tamari. She was about to say something but was interrupted when someone tapped on her shoulder. Turning she saw Anko and Kurenai grinning. I see you finally went with my idea. Soon all the boys will be throwing themselves at you, Anko said with giggle. Hanabi just sighed and slumped into her seat a bit farther. Hinata is so going to pay. The sound of someone walking up to the podium interrupted her thoughts. In front of stood Tsunade. She waited for the room to quiet down before speaking. Okay people, it's time for the meeting of the SKA, to begin. Hanabi tried to listen to the meeting but her thoughts kept drifting back to the man she met earlier. He felt familiar but she couldn't place him. The thought of what he would have looked like without mask on soon came to a head. If his eyes were any indication, he must be gorgeous. Naruto led the guys to a bar in a secluded section of town. The place looked a bit run down, but he heard good things about the place from Jiraiya. It was a place where most of the patrons were villagers, so there was little chance of being discovered. Entering quietly as possible, the four walked to the back of the joint and sat around a small table. They say for a few minutes before Naruto realized the place had no table service. With a sigh, Naruto stood up and headed to the bar. "Can I get 4 bottles of sake with a bottle of your strongest liquor? I'm also going to need 4 saucers along with 2 shot glasses, please." The bartender nodded to Naruto before turning to gather what he asked. Placing them on a tray with a bowl of sugar cubes, a pitcher of ice water and a slotted spoon, he looked at Naruto. "I got to warn you, kid," the man said as he gestured to the bottle of green liquid. "This stuff is strong. My advice to you is to cut it with water that you pour over the cubes, hence the special spoon. It will be 200 ryo, by the way." Naruto nodded to the man and reached into his cloak to grab his beloved frog wallet, only to be stopped when someone placed a hand on his shoulder. Turning, he found himself staring at a masked man with silver hair. His visible eye formed an upside-down U, signaling that the man was grinning under his mask. "It's been a long time, Naruto," Kakashi said as paid for Naruto's drinks. Naruto stared at the man in disbelief. "How did you know it was me?" "Well, I can't see your face with the mask, but you can't hide this." He reached up and ruffled Naruto's hair. "Christ, how'd you get so damn big? Finally took your advice and started eating right. Guess my body made up for lost time." Kakashi nodded. "I take it you're back for good now?" "Yeah, damn Ba-chan let them tear down my apartment, so I'm out of a home," he said with a frown. "But at least she gave me the land my old man left for me. Going to build a house with my friends." Kakashi nodded once again. He figured out who Naruto's father was about a year after he left. With Naruto gone, he didn't get a chance to apologize to him, something he planned to make up for. "Speaking of my friends, they're waiting for me to bring the drinks. Care to join us?" "Sure." Naruto grinned as he reached for the tray, oblivious to the white blur that was barreling towards him. He didn't see it till it was too late. With a sound that caused the bottles behind the bar to rattle, Naruto was knocked back while throwing the tray in the air. Luckily, Kakashi was fast enough to save it, leaving Naruto to deal with the large dog that was currently licking his face. "What the hell, Akamaru?" Naruto said as he tried to lift the massive animal off him. "Well shit, look who Akamaru found, guys," a voice said from the entrance of the bar. Turning his head to the side, he could see Kiba grinning at him before taking a step forward. He was followed by the rest of the male members of the Rookie 9 with Asuma and Neji. "Is that you, Naruto?" Neji asked, rubbing his eyes in disbelief. Kiba smacked him upside the head and pointed to the man currently pinned under his dog. "Of course it's him. Akamaru smelled him when he got close to this place." Soon the two were having a small argument, ignoring Naruto's pleas for help. Luckily, it was Shikamaru who helped Naruto get the dog off him. "You know, Naruto, even after you're gone for 9 years, you're still a pain in my ass." Naruto glared at him for a moment before grinning. "I try." "So Naruto, what brings you around these parts?" Choji asked while eating a handful of nuts from the bar. "Ba-chan sent for me. But enough of that, I came here to have a drink with my friends. So you guys might as well join us." Naruto glanced at the tray Kakashi was holding, then back to the rest of his friends. Going to need more drinks, he thought to himself. Kakashi saw what Naruto was doing and understood. Signaling to the bartender, he ordered another tray's worth of drinks and more glasses. With that done, he turned to Naruto. "Shall we?" Naruto nodded and took one of the trays and headed to where his other friends were sitting, with the others following behind him. When he got to the table, he noticed that Asuma and Kakashi were missing. Turning, he saw them staring at Itachi and Kisame along with a fox. It was Asuma who spoke. "What are you two doing here?" Kisame looked at the man and grinned. "I believe we were trying to get drunk." Naruto didn't know what happened between these four, but he wasn't going to let his evening get ruined. Placing the tray on the table, he turned and placed a hand on Asuma's shoulder. "Guys, relax, these are my friends that I mentioned." Kakashi leaned over to Naruto and whispered into his ear. "You do realize those are 2 missing nin, who I might add tried to capture you?" Naruto looked at him and shrugged before taking a seat next to Kyuubi. He watched the two Junin stand there before he started pouring drinks. After pouring one for each of them, he poured 2 extra and handed them to Kisame, who looked at them before glancing at Naruto. Realizing what they were for, the large man stood up, picked them up, and walked over to Asuma and Kakashi. Shoving them into their hands, he said one thing. "Drink." Instantly the tense atmosphere was broken. Kakashi and Asuma looked at what they were holding, then to the shark-like man. He just flashed them a smile. Seeing that there wasn't going to be a fight anytime soon, they grabbed a chair and sat down next to them. The others soon followed suit. Kakashi lifted his mask to allow him to sip his drink and turned to Naruto. "Naruto, I've been meaning to ask you this. I say you make it look good, but what's the deal with the mask?" "Well, it hides my face. Without it, my life gets more troublesome, as Shikamaru would put it." "How so?" Naruto pulled it down, revealing his face. Instantly he could feel many sets of eyes upon him. All of them female, while he wanted to put it back. He couldn't drink with it on. Kakashi noticed all the women in the bar were staring at Naruto's face. Some were even beginning to drool. "I see. It is indeed a curse the two of us have to bear," the older man said with a smile. Naruto chuckled as he took a sip of his sake, doing his damnedest to ignore the looks. Soon everyone was on their way to total inebriation. Somehow the conversation turned into one about each other's experiences for the past 9 years. "So Naruto, what the hell have you been up to?" Kiba asked. "You know the usual, train, beat, bad guys, and rescue women in need." Kakashi started to grin. "Rescue women, you say? I'm sure they were very appreciative of your efforts, Naruto. Please give details." Naruto took on a look of horror. "God, why did I mention women? I hope those two can keep their mouths shut," Naruto thought. Unluckily for him, Kisame began to speak. "You could say that, Kakashi. But it seems Kid is a big green when it comes to women." Even though he still acts perverted at times, Kyuubi said as he took a sip from a saucer, ignoring the stares that were being focused on him. "Did that fox just talk?" Choji asked. "Talk? The frigging thing just took a saucer and drank from it," Kiba exclaimed. "How did he hold the saucer?" Shino asked, the only words he spoke so far this evening. Kyuubi laughed before raising a paw. With all attention on him, he showed that he could move one of his toes into a makeshift thumb. "Quit showing off, ya damn lush of a fox," Naruto said to Kyuubi before turning back to his friends. "So what about you guys? Any of you finally get girlfriends?" All of them nodded with perverted grins. "So who's the lucky kunoichi?" "None of them," Asuma stated as he poured himself another drink. "Huh? Female ninja are more troublesome than they're worth. Ask Asuma," Shikamaru said as he lit up a cigarette. "What's he mean, Asuma? Kurenai wanted me to quit smoking. Of course I wasn't going to stop, so she ended up placing me in a genjutsu. Let me say this, it wasn't pretty. Needless to say, kunoichi aren't worth it. Too damn bossy." With that said, the rookie 9 said an amen. "I feel ya," Naruto said as he reached for the hard liquor. "I think it's time to kick it up a notch." Okay, the last thing said before this meeting of the SKA is concluded is this. Jiraiya has been caught peeping at a village a day away from here. Because of this, the HSPA 3 has been raised to red. I advise staying away from the hot springs. If you must go, be wary. Tsunade stepped down from the podium, signaling the end of the meeting. Hanabi missed most of it, lost in her thoughts she was. She wanted to meet that man again. Wanted to see what was under the mask. She realized halfway through the meeting, that her bloodline would be able to penetrate it without him being none the wiser. She was pulled from her thoughts when her sister and her friends got up and headed towards the door. Following behind them, she could hear them talk about one of the main problems affecting the group. "God, isn't there any decent men left in this village?" Ino exclaimed. "There used to be many willing men, till a certain woman tortured a certain man," Tenten said as she glared at Kurenai. "Hey, I didn't think it would go this far," Kurenai said in an attempt to defend her actions. "Too far? None of them will give us the time of day now." "Well, at least you don't have to worry about a crazy brother," Damari said. "Shit, you guys are fucking lucky you have decent guys to look at." "All we have is that Kabuto," a voice said from behind them. Turning, they saw an angry-looking redhead. "Tayuya, you're just mad at him because he saved you. You can't say he doesn't make a decent cage," a black-haired girl said from behind her. Naruto woke with a blinding headache. The light that filtered through the tree seemed 1,000 times brighter than what it really was. Even the sounds of the stream they set camp near seemed louder than it needed to be. Closing his eyes, Naruto sat up and raised his hands to his temples and did the only medical jutsu he bothered to learn. Soon the headache was reduced to a manageable throb, letting Naruto take in the sights. Looking around the camp, he could see Kisame sleeping across from him. Itachi and Kyuubi were nowhere to be found. Then he heard snoring. Looking down, he saw Kyuubi draped across his legs sleeping. Reaching down, Naruto scratched behind his ears, receiving a purr for his effort. You say you're one of the most evil creatures in existence, but you're just a softie," Naruto said as he continued to scratch the fox's ear. "I see you're up." Naruto looked up to see Kisame rolling up his bedroll. "Yeah, I have a few hours before I have to see the Hokage. So we might as well get started on clearing a lot to build on," Naruto said as he got up carefully, so Kyuubi wouldn't wake. Walking over to his pack, he changed into something more suitable for work. Deciding on a loose pair of black khakis and a sleeveless shirt, he decided to forego the mask seeing that no one would be seeing his face. Without sleeves one could see the many seals that he placed on his arms. Biting his thumb, Naruto drew it over a seal that wrapped across his wrist. In a poof of smoke, Zabuza's Zanbato was in his hand. Looking at the surrounding forest, Naruto knew he had his work ahead of him. This part of the forest was dominated by pine trees that stood almost perfectly straight. This gave him an idea for what kind of house he wanted to build. "You ready?" Kisame asked with a grin, pulling his sword back for a mighty swing. Crash! Kyuubi woke with a jump when the first tree fell. Looking around he could see Kisame and Naruto felling trees. "Well, there goes getting any more sleep in," the fox thought bitterly. As the fox woke up, its stomach grumbled lightly. "Might as well hunt since I'm up." Kyuubi slunk out of camp and worked on getting far away from it as possible. No helpless creature would stay near anything that made that much noise in the woods. Soon the fox crossed a heavily used path. Happy that he could no longer hear the camp, he began to hunt. It didn't take him long to find a small animal near the edge of a clearing. As he sneaked in, he noticed that some activity in the clearing. As he got closer, he saw a man in green training. "He looks familiar, but look at that delectable squirrel," Kyuubi said as he licked his chops. In a burst of speed he was upon the squirrel. Squeak, squirrely. Kyuubi turned and saw the man bearing down on him with intent to kill. "Shit," he muttered as he turned and ran towards the safety Naruto would provide, squirrel squeaking every step of the way. Naruto didn't think it was possible for him to get tired anymore, but here he was. While cutting down trees wasn't hard, convincing Kisame to cut at an angle was. He finally smacked some sense into the man after dodging the 12th tree that nearly crushed him. "I think that's enough," Naruto said as he looked at the clearing. They cleared about 2 acres of densely packed forest, but they had more than enough to build. "I say we take a small break before we work on clearing a path to the road," Kisame mentioned as rubbed one of his newly acquired bruises. "I'll agree with you on da." Naruto stopped talking as the sounds of trees falling reached the clearing. They were falling fast and each one was closer than the last. Both prepared for a fight when they saw Kyuubi run to them while carrying something in his mouth. Then they heard the shout. "Drop that squirrel, you unyouthful beast." "Lee," Naruto thought before he looked at Kyuubi. "You had to try and eat that squirrel, didn't you?" Lee was pissed for the first time in his life. He had been training while his squirrel was off foraging. Next thing he knew, a fox grabbed his friend and ran away. Leading him on one of the hardest chases of his life, he managed to catch up with it several times, but it decided to head directly for the forbidden side of the forest. It was there that he needed to release the first gate just to clear a path for himself. "Drop that squirrel, you unyouthful beast," shouted Lee as he saw a clearing ahead. As he entered it, he heard something whistling through the air. Instinctively he ducked. "What's up, Lee?" Naruto knew that Lee would be here any moment, and if he didn't stop him he tried to kill Kyuubi. Pulling his arm back, he threw his sword towards where he thought Lee would be entering. He wasn't wrong. "What's up, Lee?" he said as he walked over to retrieve his sword. Lee was still on the ground when Naruto finally managed to pull the quivering blade out of the tree. Looking down he spoke. "You can get up now, Lee." "Naruto? The one and only. Naruto." Instantly Naruto was pulled into a hug. "Lee, I can't breathe." Seeing his friend's predicament, Lee let go, dropping his friend to the ground. When did you get back? The man asked. Yesterday, Naruto said as he tried to regain his breath. What were you doing? Well, I was training by myself, when a vile beast grabbed my friend. You didn't see a fox come through here, did you? Naruto sighed and nodded his head. Slowly he walked over to where Kyuubi was hiding. Grabbing the fox by the scruff his neck, he lifted it till it was eye level with him. Holding out his hand, he said one thing. Give. Immediately Kyuubi spat out the stunned animal into Naruto's hand. Wincing in disgust, due to thing being covered in saliva, he handed the squirrel to Lee. Immediately it ran up to his shoulder and began to chatter obscenities at Kyuubi. Seeing that his friend was okay, Lee began to start a conversation with Naruto. Not paying an ounce of attention to the man who was staring at his forehead. Kisame was mesmerized by Lee. Not by his fashion sense, nor his grace. Not even for his youthful ways. He was mesmerized by his eyebrows. Those can't be real, he thought as he watched them. They seemed to have a mind of their own as they undulated with each word the man spoke. Eventually curiosity got the better of him as he reached forward to touch them. His index finger just brushed against one when he felt a sharp pain in it. Pulling it back, he looked at it. The skin at the very tip seemed to have been bitten. Looking from his finger back to the eyebrow, he swore he heard a quiet hiss. Naruto caught the movement Kisame made and turned to him. He saw the man glancing between his finger and Lee's eyebrows several times. Forgot to mention they bite, Naruto thought with a small chuckle. Then he realized that he forgot to introduce Kisame. Pointing to Lee he spoke. Kisame, this is Lee. Lee, this is Kisame. Pleasure to meet you, Kisame-san, Lee said as he held out his hand. Likewise, kid, said Kisame as he shook his hand. With the pleasantries out of the way, Lee turned to Naruto. May I ask you a question, Naruto? You just did. Why are you out here in the forbidden section of the forest? Forbidden? Ba-chan told me this was my father's land and gave it to me. Lee nodded in understanding. I planned to build my home out here. Hence why Kisame and I were logging. Lee nodded once again before his eyes burned with a flame. That is the most youthful thing I have ever heard. For a man to build his own home is sign of his youth. I must assist you. Well, Lee, we were getting ready to clear a path to the road from here. I don't think we need to do that now, Naruto, Kisame said as he pointed in the direction Lee came from. Naruto looked and saw a straight path leading from the clearing to the road. Results of Lee barreling his way through, literally knocking every tree out of the way. Jesus, Lee, you just saved me a hell of a lot of work. I should thank you. Lee grinned sheepishly. Is there anything else I can help you with? Naruto looked at Lee, then towards the trees that were down. I think I have something. Naruto formed a thought, and soon pops could be heard around them. He was surrounded by 50 clones. Okay, I want you guys to get to work on stripping these logs. Lee, you can help me pile them. Lee nodded while the clones saluted and turned to work, singing as they began. Hi ho, off to work we. Shut the hell up, Naruto bellowed. The clones all shut up, but Naruto could hear one say. Pointing a finger at that one, it dismissed in a puff of smoke. Anyone else got something to say? The remainder of clones shook their heads. Good. Naruto liked to use his clones, but he started to realize that they began to form their own personalities, leading to insubordination from some. Sighing, he went back to work. Deep in the recesses of Naruto's mind, 2 Narutos were sitting in a room. One sat against the wall sleeping while the other was doing push-ups. Soon they were joined by another. What are you in for? Asked the one doing the push-ups. Called the boss, you? Let's just say it involved Tabasco sauce and private areas. The other guy hid the boss's clothes and told a pack of fangirls where he was bathing. Ouch. Back in the real world, Naruto looked at the piles of logs. There was enough there to build a huge house and still have some left. Smiling to himself, he dismissed the rest of his clones. I think it's time for me to head back and train Naruto. If you need my assistance, you know where to find me, Lee said, giving him a thumbs up, that even his squirrel mimicked. Thanks, Lee. I'll keep that in mind. Naruto, Q and I are going out to do some fishing. We'll be back at the camp by sundown, Kisame spoke as he walked towards the stream, Kyuubi in tow. Seeing that he was alone, Naruto decided he needed to hit the village. He was getting hungry and still needed to buy the things he would need to ensure his home had all the necessary modern necessities. It didn't take him long to reach the village. Along the way he caught a whiff of himself, and it wasn't nice. Deciding to take a bath first, he put his mask on and headed into the village in search of a hot spring. "Come on forehead, we got to get to the hot spring," Ino said as she dragged her friend behind her. "Easy piggy, it's still early," Sakura said as she tried to break Ino's grip. "You also heard about the alert Jiraiya could be about. Why do you think I wanted to get here early? Do you think the pervert would be stupid enough to peep during the day? Well, that makes sense. We're here," Ino shouted as she ran into the building, dragging Sakura behind her. It took a while to find the closest hot spring, but he couldn't be happier. It had been a few days since his last bath, and even longer than for one done with hot water. The prospect of a hot soak added a spring to his step as he entered the building. At the admission desk stood a young woman, who at the moment was staring at Naruto. Well, his chest and his bare arms. Naruto smirked as he watched her stare so blatantly, but it had to end sometime. Raising a fist to his mouth, he cleared his throat. Instantly the woman was brought out of her musings. "Can I help you, sir? Do you offer a laundry service? We do for a small fee." "How long would it take?" Naruto asked. "It would take about 30 minutes. "Cool, how much though?" "A 20 ryo fee would added to your bill." "Is this okay?" "Sounds good, it gives me enough time for a soak. Just leave your clothes in the basket provided and I'll take them to be cleaned." Naruto nodded to the woman and headed to the men's changing room. Quickly undressing and wrapping a towel around him, he headed out to the bathing area to clean himself before he would soak. "This feels great," Sakura said with a sigh as she laid back against a rock in the water. "You got that right, sister," Ino replied as she sat next to Sakura. "We need to do this more often." "Yeah," she was about to say something else but the sound of water interrupted her. It came from the other side of the wall that separated the spring. "There's someone over there," Sakura said as she gestured to the other side. "Wonder who it is?" "Only one way to find out," Ino said cheekily as she made her way towards the fence that separated the bath. "What are you doing?" Sakura hissed at her friend. "What's it look like?" Ino said as she forced chakra into a finger to bore a hole into the fence to look through. Sakura looked at her friend with disgust till she heard her say, "Wow. What is it? You have got to see this guy. I think I'm in love." "What? Get over here, girl, and make a hole, you have to see this." Sakura couldn't believe her friend, but did what she was told. Making a small hole next to Ino's, she peered through. Instantly she felt her face heat up. In the bath next to theirs, was a man wearing nothing but a towel and a face mask. His blonde hair was sagging with water that he attempted to shake out. As he neared the water, he dropped his towel and threw it over his shoulder, revealing the tattoos that seemed to cover his body among other things. Ino and Sakura were speechless. They had seen many examples of the male anatomy due to their work at the hospital, but that seemed like nothing now. Oblivious to the warm fluid running down their faces, they continued to stare. Naruto grinned as he saw the water. After throwing his towel over his shoulder, he entered. Relishing the feeling of the water on his sore muscles, he slowly moved to the edge and settled down. "God, it's been so long since I've been to a hot spring. Last time it was with Kisame and Jiraiya in Mist Village. Even then I didn't get a chance to soak. A few months prior. You guys ready?" Kisame asked. Jiraiya and Naruto nodded. They hanged into different forms of himself. Naruto simply hid his whiskers, while Jiraiya changed his hair color and hid his markings. Kisame changed his appearance to look like an average villager. With grins plastered on their faces, they headed to the hot springs. It didn't take them long to find it in a good peeping spot. Grinning like the fools they are, they watched through the holes they made. Kisame and Naruto giggling perversely while Jiraiya was taking notes. In Konoha, Kakashi was bored. He just finished the latest copy of Jiraiya's book and was craving more. Wonder when Jiraiya will have the next volume out. Back with our heroes? Jiraiya was almost finished with a scroll of notes when he sneezed suddenly, startling Kisame and Naruto and alerting the women to their presence. "Someone must be thinking of me," he thought as he looked back through the hole, only to find the women missing. "Where did they go?" Kisame asked. Then they felt the most killing intent they had ever felt in their lives, and it was heading right towards them. Soon the women were in sight and Kisame and Jiraiya began to remove their shoes, puzzling Naruto. "What are you guys doing?" "We run faster without shoes," Jiraiya answered. "You guys can't hope to outrun a mob of angry women." "We don't need to outrun them, just you," Kisame said as he stood up. "What?" Naruto said, only to realize they were long gone. Turning back to the mob, he said one thing, please not the face. Back to the present, Naruto shuddered at that memory. Only to be pulled from his thoughts when he heard giggles. I recognized that kind of giggle, it could mean only one thing, he thought as he glanced at the fence. Spotting the two holes, he formed a fist and squirted water at them. Damn it, two voices said from the other side of the fence, causing Naruto to chuckle as he covered himself and left the water. Ino and Sakura rubbed their eyes in attempt to restore their vision. When they could finally see again, they looked through the holes to find the man gone. Well shit, Ino muttered. Damn it, did you see his thing? Ino asked. See it? How the hell could you miss it? He could have clubbed a seal with it. With that said, both girls were reflecting on the memory with blood flowing freely from their noses. It was then that both thought the same thing. I want. Naruto quickly dried as he entered the changing room. Finding his clothes folded neatly in a pile with a note. Picking up the note, he read it. Here are your clothes, they had been cleaned and pressed. There will be no charge. Well, that was nice of her, Naruto thought as he picked up his clothes, only to find out why there was no charge. The woman kept his dirty boxers. That's just wrong. Those were my favorite pair, Naruto thought as he got dressed, grimacing at the idea of having to go commando. Soon he left and was heading to his next stop. Finding the store, he entered to see a bored young man watching the counter. The man looked up at his new customer and smiled. Welcome to Hiroshi's Hardware and Building Supplies. How can I help you? I'm building a house and need everything on this list, Naruto said as handed the man a list of what he needed. The man read the list, grinning more and more as he read. Then he turned to Naruto. You wrote down a power generator. Would you prefer a fuel or chakra-based one? Chakra, please. Good choice, sir. How soon do you need this stuff? As soon as possible. How soon can you have it ready? I can have it prepared by 5 p.m. or have it delivered. I'll pick it up this afternoon, but it will be later than 5, is that okay? Naruto asked. Sure. Well, see you later. Later, sir. As Naruto walked out to hear the man yell. Get your lazy asses up, you goddamn idiots. We got an order to fill for a newest favorite customer. It was almost time for Naruto meet with the Hokage. The day had been so far eventful, if you count dealing with a stuttering and blushing Ayame eventful. He took his time entering the building. When he came up to the office, he saw the guard he knocked out the day before. Instantly the man tensed as he saw Naruto. It's okay. I have an appointment with the Hokage this time. The man was visibly relieved when he heard this. Bowing to Naruto as he passed. Naruto entered the office only to see Tsunade passed out on the paperwork she was working on. Silently he crept to her and leaned into her ear and yelled. Hey Ba-chan. Instantly she was awake and prepared to attack. Seeing that it was only Naruto, she settled down. What can I do for you, Naruto? You tell me. You told me to be here. Tsunade remembered that she told Naruto to meet with her. Folding her hands on her desk, she looked at him. I want you to tell me what you have been up to these past 9 years. Nodding, he began the tale of his adventures. Working for Tazuna for a few months, training with Kisame and Itachi, he even got into the details of the freelance missions he completed, along with his exploits with Jiraiya. Much to Tsunade's displeasure. Okay. I want to know why Kyuubi is free from the seal. Why? It's not like he can do anything outside of decimating the squirrel population. Explain. Naruto heaved a sigh and began the explanation of Kyuubi's freedom. A few months prior, once again, Naruto was pissed. Those women kicked his ass 6 ways of Sunday and didn't even give him a chance. Then you got the fact those 2 assholes left him for dead. Someone's ass was going to be beat when he returned to the camp. It also didn't help that Kyuubi was laughing his ass off in his mind. That had to be the funniest shit I've ever been witness to in my life. Kyuubi said while laughing hysterically. Fuck you, Fox. I mean, how does someone who can take a Sannin down get beat up by a bunch of women, civilians no less? I don't want to hear it, Fox. Jiraiya and Kisame were exhausted. They had ran all the way back to their camp, puzzling Itachi to why there were only 2 of them at camp. Where's Naruto? We had to leave him behind. Kisame didn't have a chance to finish before he was sent flying into a tree. I had take your beatings because you left me behind. But, Jiraiya stuttered out before being cut off by Naruto. Shut up. If getting beaten wasn't bad enough, I had to listen to the fucking fox the whole trip back. I've had it. It's time I got rid of the thing. Instantly Jiraiya and the others became somber. You know we can't do that, Naruto. We can try. Kisame showed me his clan's scrolls, but the effects of gaining all that power could very well kill you. Fuck it, anything would be better than listening to that freak day in and day out. Are you sure? I'm sure I can do it, but I need you to be serious about this. This isn't a joke. Just do it, old man. It didn't take them long to prepare the sealing. Naruto was forced to lay naked in clearing as Jiraiya applied seals all over his body. Soon he was finished and looked down at Naruto. You know what to do, kid? I can handle everything out here, but only you can finish the work inside. Naruto nodded as he forced his way into his mindscape. Arriving in the dank sewer that was his mind, he got to work applying seals to the walls while the fox slept. After double-checking every seal to make sure they were perfect, he made his way over to the fox's cage. Wake up, you lazy bastard. What the hell are you doing here, brat? What'd it look like? Naruto said as he reached for the seal, starting to remove it. I'm letting you out. Kyuubi couldn't believe his eyes. His jailer was freeing him. Soon he would be unleashed upon on the world yet again. Grinning as the last of the seal was removed, he felt his vision beginning to fade as he left Naruto's mind. Everyone watched Naruto with bated breath. Nothing seemed to be happening for a while and they thought that he messed up on the inside. Then a red chakra began to emanate from Naruto's stomach seal and covered him. All of them could feel the immense power that was being released and prepared for the worst. Naruto began to change into his feral form as the power increased, but it seemed that he was in control. Then a blast of light came from the boy. Then they heard a voice. I'm free, finally free. Itachi was puzzled by the voice. It didn't sound the least bit demonic. It sounded like someone got into the helium. When the light cleared, they could see Naruto was okay and that a small fox was cheering while standing on its hind legs doing a cheering motion. Kyuubi? The fox turned to look at the Uchiha. How dare you call me by my name, mortal? The fox growled before it realized it was being lifted into the air. Turning, it met the blue eyes of Naruto. I don't think you're in any position to threaten anyone, fuzzbutt. Brat, how'd you get so big? I didn't, you got smaller. What? Kyuubi took notice of his surroundings. No longer did he tower over the land. How the hell? Naruto didn't bother answer the fox, just began grin evilly. Back to the present, so that's the reason why Kyuubi is free. Interesting, so you absorbed the power of the nine-tailed fox. Did you gain anything besides its power? Tsunade asked. Well, I gained some knowledge as well. Did you know you didn't have to announce jutsus when you performed them? I did not, but it makes sense. Was there anything else? I can perform many jutsus with less seals and some without seals at all. Also, my seals on my body don't fade anymore. So now I look like I'm tattooed. How much do they cover? Everything. Everything? Tsunade asked with smirk. Naruto blushed at her implications. Why is everyone I know perverted? Not that. Tsunade nodded with a smirk. A moment later she returned to being serious. There is only one question left to ask. Something that will factor into your new placement in the ranks of the village's ninjas. How strong are you now? Naruto paused for a moment to figure a way to define his strength. I can easily surpass a cage if I'm serious. Tsunade couldn't believe what she heard, even though it had some merit to it. And you friends? Sannin level in their specialized fields, special Junin and everything else. Anything else you wish to know? That is enough for now, Naruto. I would like to meet with you again in a week to discuss placements and what you want to do now that you know who your parents are. Okay, Ba-chan, I'll be leaving then. Later. With that said, Naruto left the Hokage in her office to think. Something about Naruto seemed off. I wonder if he's stressed out? She asked the empty room, not expecting an answer. A voice from her window answered her. He's not stressed, just frustrated. It's been a while, Jiraiya. Now explain to me what's wrong with Naruto. Like I said, the boy's frustrated, Jiraiya said as he let himself in. The boy needs to find a release, something that will solve this kind of frustration. And what kind of frustration would that be? Jiraiya said one word, UAL. You can't be serious. It has to be something more. Tsunade, let me tell you something. I've been around that boy much longer than you have. I have witnessed the changes that happened to him over the years. That boy has grown much stronger, but he has grown in other ways. I mean, you've seen him without his mask on. He could get any woman he wanted. But even so, it saddens me to say this. The boy is scared of them. He may have taken after me and my perverse ways as his father did, but he freezes up when he's in the presence of someone willing. If this keeps going as it has been, he will suffer a mental breakdown. But I have a plan to fix this, and several others. Including the one the council will have when they find out about his heritage. A plan you say that will fix everything you say, give me the details. Jiraiya leaned into her right ear and whispered what his plan would entail. First Tsunade's eyes widened, and she began to smile. Jiraiya stepped back and waited for her answer. She responded by placing her hands into a steeple with a dark smile gracing her features. Jiraiya, you are a genius. Tenten sighed as she looked at the clock on the wall of her parents' shop. Today was a slow day for her. She only had one customer all day and it was just some kid looking for a few new kunais. Other than that, the day seemed to drag on unbearably. She was thankful that she could close the shop in a few minutes. Seeing that she had about 5 minutes left, she began to straighten up the shop, only to have the bell ring on the door that signaled customers. Looking up, she saw that Temari had come in, followed by Kin and Tayuya. What can I do for you guys? Tenten asked. Keep us company, we're about ready to die from boredom, Temari said with a smile. Keep us company was code speak for gossiping, one of Tenten's few faults. She loved to gossip along with the rest of the girls present. They usually ended up talking about guys, or the lack of decent ones, which was the situation in the 3 villages. Give me a few minutes to close up the shop and we can talk while I go visit my cousin. Instantly all the girls began to grin lecherously. Tenten's cousin Hiroshi had been off the market for a few years due to being married, but that wouldn't stop them from ogling him. It didn't take Tenten long to finish closing up the shop. Soon the 4 girls were heading to her cousin's shop. When they arrived, she noticed all the workers were moving quickly, adding various things to an ever-growing pile. Eventually she got close enough to ask where their boss was. Thanking the man, she walked into the back of the shop and returning with her cousin. What's with everyone here? Tayuya asked as she watched a couple workers move a large concrete tank next to the pile. Hiroshi began to grin widely. We're trying to get everything for a customer. That's it? You guys don't move this fast when I need something, Tenten said with a huff. That's because you're family, you also don't purchase much, Hiroshi said, further pissing off his little cousin. Who's your customer? Temari and Kin asked. I don't know his name, but he seemed like a nice guy, Hiroshi said as the door opened. Well, speak of the devil, here he is. Is everything ready? Naruto asked, oblivious to the girls who were staring at him as he spoke with Hiroshi. Yes sir, what do I owe you? Naruto asked as he reached for his wallet. It comes to 30,000 ryo. Nodding, Naruto pulled 2 20,000 ryo notes from the toad's mouth and handed it to the man. You can keep the change, think of it as a tip. Hiroshi couldn't believe the guy, neither did the girls. Glancing at the money then back to Naruto, he had to ask a question. How do you plan to take this with you? That septic tank alone has to weigh at least 400 kilos. Naruto looked at the pile before he made a simple hand seal. In a puff of smoke everything that he ordered disappeared, leaving everyone else in the shop stupefied. How did you do that? Hiroshi asked, still not believing what he saw. Naruto just gestured to his shoulder, showing a tattoo that didn't exist a few minutes prior. A storage seal? Tenten asked. Naruto nodded, raising his hand to show that he was leaving. He spoke. Tenten, Temari, until next time. Both girls were speechless. That man knew their names, but they didn't know how. Before they could ask questions they were interrupted by Kin and Tayuya's ramblings. Did you see what that guy did? He sealed all that stuff in such a small seal. Kin squealed. Screw that, did you see his body? He was fucking ripped. Now that was a fucking man, unlike Hiroshi here. What the hell do you mean by that? Hiroshi yelled. Just what I said. Hiroshi didn't respond, preferring to stand there and look pissed off. Leaving Temari and Tenten to think about one question, how did that man know us? 1 week later, Naruto stood and looked at his home. Before him stood a house worthy of royalty. It was built in a style like a log cabin and rivaled the size of the Hyuga's main house. Naruto made sure it had everything a man could ever need and more, even an onsen that resided in the back of it. It took less than a week to finish with the help of his friends and clones. The clones were the easy part, but he had to bargain with his friends for the help. In the end he had to agree to let his home be the new hangout spot and to allow his friends to stay over whenever they wanted. Not that bad, but the idea of having to feed Choji made him shudder. All he had to do now was hire someone to landscape and to stock the kitchen. something he would take care of after his meeting with Tsunade. Looking at the sun to judge the time, he noticed he had to be at the Hokage's tower soon. Giving his home one last glance, he turned and headed into the village. At the home of the Hyuga, Hinata was once again in the middle of a daily ritual. She wasn't showering, nor was she training. She was getting some quality time taking care of her private areas, one with her special friend, and a laminated picture of a certain boy. Soon her climax had arrived and she was enjoying the afterglow. As she laid there breathing heavily, her mind began to drift. She thought about Naruto and how he may have changed in these past 9 years. She also thought about her sister. Hanabi acted strange all week, like her mind was constantly on something else. She even went as far as leaving Hinata alone, showing that there was something seriously wrong. Usually Hanabi was driving her nuts, either with pranks or going so far as to borrow 2 things that were very dear to Hinata, much to her displeasure. As Hinata laid there thinking, she heard a tapping at her window. Turning, she saw a messenger pigeon, signifying that she had to go meet with the Hokage about a mission. Quickly getting up and dressed, she ran out into the hallway, running into Hanabi. Glancing down at her hand, Hinata could see a message that was identical to hers. If the Hokage needs 2 Hyuga, this must be one serious mission. Tsunade sat at her desk and awaited the arrival of her favorite blonde ninja. Today was going to be the day that he received his birthright. She didn't have to wait long for him as he entered her office with his mask on. "You wanted to see me, Ba-chan?" "Yes, Naruto, I have something to talk with you about and also something to give you." "What did you wish to talk about?" "It's about your placement. I can't give you an immediate placement without the consent of the council." Once again with the goddamn council. "I swear God is out to get me," Naruto thought darkly. "I will be holding a meeting with the council later this afternoon to explain your situation." Which brings us the next thing. Now that you know of your heritage, you have the option of taking your father's surname and your clan's seat on the council if you choose to. Naruto thought for a moment for speaking. "I haven't decided if I want to take my old man's name yet, but I would prefer the council not to know about me yet. If they knew I was the last of the Namikaze clan, they would force me to practice polygamy or worse. They would make sleep with several girls in hopes of restoring the clan." Tsunade laughed nervously before deciding to change the subject. Reaching into her desk, she pulled a scroll out along with a strange kunai. Holding them out to Naruto, she spoke. "Naruto, this scroll here contains all of your clan's jutsus. One of them requires the use of this special kunai to perform. It was to be given to you when you learned of your heritage." Naruto bowed solemnly as he took them. Looking at the kunai, he noticed that it had 3 points. Opening the scroll, he saw the directions for the proper use of the Hiraishin technique. Closing it, Naruto could feel the tears coming to his eyes. "I'm happy to be the one who gave you your birthright, but I'm a busy woman, Naruto. I have another meeting coming up and need to prepare. I will send a message when I need you." Naruto nodded and placed the kunai and scroll into his pocket before taking his leave. Hinata was on her way to the Hokage's office. Passing a large man in the hallway, not stopping to look at him, she hurried. Once there, she realized she wasn't alone in the office. There besides the Hokage were all her friends, were her sister, Kiba's sister Hana, and the 3 foreign ninjas Kin, Tayuya, and Tamari. Standing next to her sister, she waited for the Tsunade to speak. "You are all probably wondering why all have you been called to this meeting today. This meeting today concerns a mission. Then why are we here, Tsunade-sama?" Kin asked. "This mission has been decided to be a joint mission with Otto and Suna. I've sent messages to your respective cages about the details of it and they agree with my choice." Kin nodded and gestured for her to continue. "This mission has been given a double S-class rating and the pay will be as such." "What's the mission entail, sensei?" "It must be dangerous to require all of us," Sakura asked. "I will give the details of the mission after you all have chosen to accept it." "Do you all accept to carry on this mission?" Tsunade asked with a gleam in her eye. All of the girls nodded. Deciding to mess with their heads for a moment, Tsunade spoke. "As you all must or must not know, Naruto Uzumaki has returned to the village." Tsunade paused to let the information sink in. "Naruto's back?" was the thoughts of all the Leaf Kunoichi. "When?" Sakura has asked. "He has been back for over a week. But none of us have seen him?" Tsunade began to smirk. "You probably have seen him and didn't realize it. I will help you girls out by giving a description. He is a lot taller than before he left, he is covered in seals, he still has his blue eyes and blonde hair, and has taken to wearing a mask like Kakashi's. The room became silent, as the girls realized who they were seeing without realizing it. Ino, Sakura, and Hanabi were blushing profusely, while Kin, Tayuya, Tamari, and Ten seemed to be lost in thought. Hinata and Hana just stood there looking clueless. Finally Hana decided to speak up. "Ma'am, what does this have to do with the mission?" Tsunade began to grin. "Your mission," pausing to add effect, "is to sleep with one Naruto Uzumaki." All of the women in the room just stared at the unconscious form of Hinata. The poor girl seemed to have fainted when she heard the details of the mission. "Didn't we fix that, Hanabi?" Tsunade asked the unconscious girl's sister. "Apparently we did not, Hokage-sama." "Bah, pick her up and return her to your home," Tsunade said as she glanced at Hinata, before gazing at the others. "Don't you guys have a mission to complete? Get the hell out of here." All the girls began to leave, Hanabi leaving with Hinata over her shoulder, and soon all the girls were gone save one. "Hana, why are you still here?" "I'm sorry Tsunade-sama, but I cannot complete this mission." "Why?" "I'm dating someone." This piqued Tsunade's instance. She was like almost every other woman out there, loved to hear about others' relationships. "Really, may I ask whom?" "Uruka Amino," she said barely above a whisper. "Shit, Shizune, can you come in here for a moment?" she said as she pressed a button her intercom. A moment later Shizune stuck her head in through the door. "You wanted to see me? Hana, can you repeat what you told me? That I'm dating Uruka?" Tsunade began to smash her head into her desk, puzzling Hana. The girl in question looked to Shizune for answers, but the girl was busy cheering. "I told you he wasn't gay. I won the bet, you got to give me 2 weeks off." Naruto was once again making his way through the streets, not knowing that there was a somewhat large group of girls searching for him. He had 2 places to go yet, but luckily one of them was close to the tower. With a whistle he made his way to the Yamanaka shop. There he found a man with long blonde hair tending the shop. Entering quietly he made his way to the counter, pulling the man from his duties. "What can I do for you, Naruto?" the man asked. Naruto was stunned once again. He knew he was wearing his mask and hence he shouldn't have been recognized. "How the hell do you people figure out it's me when the others don't?" Inoichi chuckled at the strange outburst before answering the boy. "Kid, there are only 2 blonde men in this village, me being one of them. It's kind of obvious who you are, that hairstyle of yours helps as well. Now what can I do for you?" "I need someone to do some landscaping. I thought you or Ino may have known someone that does that kind of work." "You finally got your old man's land, did you?" "What, you knew?" "Boy, I was Minato's friend. I've known for a long time, but you're in luck." "How?" "We do things besides work with flowers. I can do it for you after the meeting." "Now what did you have in mind?" Naruto began to explain what he wanted. He didn't mention how he wanted things placed, deciding it would be better to let an expert handle those things. About half an hour later they were done talking. "Sounds good, Naruto. I can most of the things you wanted planted later today, but some of the trees are going to take time. I would need a week to get them in." "Sounds good, Yamanaka-san. Kid, just call me Inoichi, there's no need for san. It makes me sound old." "Now that's settled, I need to prepare for the meeting. I'll see you later." "Okay Inoichi. See y'all later then." Later Naruto. Hiyashi Hyuga was sitting in his study preparing paperwork. He had been alerted earlier that Hanabi returned with an unconscious Hinata in tow. Something that used to a common occurrence, but tapered off as the years passed. He was thankful to Hanabi for bringing her home, bringing up another thought of how his daughters have changed over the years. They used to act distant but now they acted like normal siblings. They played pranks on each other and liked to argue about some boy. One that Hiyashi didn't know, but he didn't care. He was happy that his family was returning to a sense of normalcy. Then he heard the yells. "You can't participate in this mission, Hanabi, you don't even know him." "That's what you think, you big-titted cow. I'm going to complete this mission." "You flat-chested little bitch." Hiyashi winced at this comment. If there was one thing that hurt Hanabi, it was the mention of her assets, or lack thereof. She just didn't inherit her mother's genes for that. It was then that Hinata was thrown through his door, followed by her sister. The two once again began their death battle. Hiyashi watched for a moment before deciding to break it up. "What is the meaning of this?" he bellowed. Both girls stopped fighting and looked to their father. Hanabi still had a fistful of Hinata's hair. Why are you two fighting? Asked Hiyashi. It concerns a mission, father. Hinata said as she freed her hair from her sister's grip. What kind of mission could cause the two of you to be fighting? I'm sorry, but we can't release the details. Hanabi said as she threw her sister a glare. Hiyashi just stared and drew a hand down his face. He didn't want to deal with things like this before he had to go to the council. Sighing, he looked at his daughters once again. You two may leave, but I forbid you from fighting in my house. Yes, father. Hiyashi watched both girls as they left. He formed a thought. I must ask the Hokage what the details of this mission could be. Naruto was on his way to his last stop. He needed to find a grocery store. Luckily, Ino's dad recommended one that was nearby his shop. Staring at the store, he reached into his pocket and retrieved a list. Sighing at the size of it, he entered. Tsunade just sat in her chair and stared at the group of people who were bickering save a few. Listening to them prattle on about things started to take its toll on her. Slamming her fist into the table silenced them all and drew their attention. You are probably wondering why I called this meeting. It's due to the arrival of one of our most loyal ninjas returning home, along with two of his friends. It concerns his placement in our ranks after a 9-year leave for training. She smiled as she looked at the stupefied faces of most of the council. It was Inoichi that asked a question. You are speaking of Naruto, aren't you? The man asked with a knowing smirk. Once the name was in the air, the council was in an uproar. Tsunade could hear some of them mutter, demon. Banging her fist once again, she drew their attention. Yes, Naruto Uzumaki has returned to us, bringing 2 very strong shinobi with his as well. 2, who I think would greatly increase our strength as a shinobi village, but they will only join our ranks on one condition. Naruto is to be made a Junin along with them. Who are they that can demand such things from us? Shouted an angry Danzo. Tsunade grinned smugly. Boy, are these guys going to be in for a surprise. Kisame Hoshigaki and Itachi Uchiha. Instantly the room became quiet. No one expected one of the last Uchiha to return to his village, nor a man who was feared in his own country. Both would have been a great addition to their forces. But they didn't like the idea of having to promote the demon brat to get them to join. Now I propose a vote. All those in favor of reinstating Itachi and promoting Kisame and Naruto to Junin? Half the room voiced their approval. Now those not in favor? An even number of voices shouted their disapproval, disappointing Tsunade and some of the clan heads. Then she realized one person didn't vote. Staring at the man, she noticed a look of indifference on his face. Would you care to explain why you didn't vote, Hiyashi? Is it because you don't approve that Naruto be made a Junin? The man began to smirk before he spoke. On the contrary, Hokage-sama. I don't have a problem with Naruto being made a Junin, nor his comrades. Then why didn't you vote? I chose not to vote because I don't approve a promotion without some form of a test. I mean, we haven't had a chance to see how well Uzumaki's skills have grown in his time away. I personally think a test must be done, and am sure the boy would agree with me if he was present here today. Tsunade got what the man was saying. If she forced the promotion through the council, it would have looked as if she favored the boy, a sign of weakness. The damn Hyuga was actually looking out for her and her career. Flashing the man a smile, she turned back to council. I believe Hiyashi has brought up an excellent point. I agree that the boy should perform a test before placement. All those in favor? All of the room agreed, save 3 people. Danzo, Homura, and Kaharu, people who hated Naruto with a vengeance. Knowing their votes wouldn't matter, she turned to Hiyashi. You spoke of a test, Hiyashi. What kind of test did you have in mind? Simple, all the boy needs to do is defeat me in a taijutsu match. Hell, he doesn't even need to defeat me. Managing to get a damaging blow to hit me would be enough for my eyes. Tsunade looked at the man carefully. While hasn't been active for well over 20 years, his skills were still top-notch. Managing to land a damaging against him in a straight taijutsu match would be difficult even for her. Hopefully Naruto would be able to fare better than her. Okay, it's agreed that Naruto will take a test to show he is capable of being a Junin. The test will take place 2 days from now in a place of my choosing. With that said, it's time for this meeting to adjourn. All the members of the council got up and left their seats. Each of them bowing to Tsunade as they passed except for 3 who glared. The last one to pass was Hiyashi, who just gave her a small smile. Naruto threw another bag of flour into his cart as he glanced at the list Kisame made for him. What the hell could he want with all these baking ingredients? Naruto thought as he threw a tin of cocoa into the cart with a sour expression. After glancing at the list, he made his way to the next aisle. Instantly his expression changed. Before him laid an aisle devoted to tobacco. Daddy's home, Naruto thought as he dashed up and down the aisle looking for his favorite brand of cigars. Why did Naruto like to smoke, you ask? Well, let us discuss his past for a bit. We all knew the boy had an unnatural obsession with ramen. When he gave up ramen for a healthier diet, he turned his obsession onto something else. That something turned out to be cigars. He loved the scent and taste they had, and with his unnatural healing that he still retains, he can smoke without worrying about the consequences. Now back with our hero. There you are, you sneaky little thing you, Naruto said as picked up a carton. I see you're back, Naruto, a voice said from behind him. Turning around, Naruto found the scarred face of Ibiki looking at him. Deciding to let the thought that mask he wore didn't hide his identity once again slide, he smiled at the man. Ibiki and Naruto became friends after the exam. Both held each other in high respect, Naruto for his determination and Ibiki for his sense of duty. Something that Naruto held in high regard. Yup, just came into town to take care of a few things like shopping. How've you been doing? Same old shit. Doing my job and trying to ignore Anko's advances. She's still the same? Naruto asked his scarred friend. Actually, she much worse. I hate to say it, but that woman needs a man. A man who isn't me, Ibiki said as he reached down and grabbed a carton of cigarettes. Right now I wish Kurenai didn't mess with Asuma, even if he smokes like a chimney. Now all the shinobi are too scared to approach the kunoichi, fearing the same might happen to them. Naruto shuddered at the thought of a craved Anko before looking at Ibiki. Now that I'm back, why don't you stop by my house and we can catch up? Since when do you have a house? I thought you lived in that little shitty apartment? Well, considering Tsunade gave my apartment away, I had to build a house to stay in with some friends. Here, I'll give you the directions, it doesn't quite have an address yet. Ibiki nodded as Naruto wrote something quickly on the back of the shopping list before handing it to him. Here are the directions. I'm pretty much home unless Tsunade calls me in for something, so show up anytime. If I'm not there by any chance, just let yourself in and make yourself at home. Maybe I'll just do that, Ibiki said with a smirk while hatching a plan. Naruto gave him a small wave before heading out towards the clerk to check out. Ibiki gave him a small wave and looked down at the small paper. Seeing a list of ingredients, he flipped it over to look at the directions wrote. Seeing it, he formed a thought. Isn't this Minato's property? Ino was tired. After leaving the Hokage's tower with her friend, the two began their search for the boy required of the mission. They spent most of the afternoon going from one of his old haunts to the next. They even went to where his apartment was supposed to be, only to find a store that had a crazed, black-haired man running down the aisles. Seeing that Naruto wouldn't be there, they decided to head back to Ino's home and plan for their next search. Arriving, they found a very happy-looking Inoichi loading a cart full of landscaping supplies. It was Sakura who popped the question that was on Ino's mind. What's with all the stuff, Mr. Yamanaka? The man flashed a bright smile. Got a job, a pretty big one from the looks of it. Guess I lucked out today in more ways than one. How do you mean, Dad? Well, it was going to take me a while to do this job, but luckily two of my favorite helpers showed up. Dad, you can't be serious? Sakura and I are in the middle of a mission. Listen, I'll help you guys with your mission if you guys help me with this. It shouldn't take long between the three of us. But Dad, Ino drawled, only to be cut off by her father. No buts, young lady. Now you two get work and help me load this cart, then we can head to the client's home. It didn't take long for three to load up the cart and were soon on their way. They left the gates of the village and headed up one of the paths in the forest. What kind of person lives outside the safety of the village walls? Sakura asked Ino's dad. He's kind of special. From my understanding, his home was destroyed, so he was given his family's land. He ended up having to build his own home. So who is he? Asked Ino. Can't tell you till we get there, Inoichi said with a chuckle. You know you suck, Dad. Ah, hush up. I can see the path that leads to his home. Both girls looked at the wide path that led for ways. As they walked it, they noticed the amount of trees that were knocked down at the sides of it. After a bit more walking, they arrived at the house. All three of them stared in awe. The place was huge, but thankfully for Inoichi, the rest of the lot was small. It would take him a few hours to finish. Who the hell lives here? Ino damn near yelled at her father. Inoichi chuckled a bit before answering her. Why don't you two go and tell the client we have arrived? Both girls nodded and made their way towards the front door. Seeing as there was no bell, Ino knocked loudly on the large wooden door. They waited for a few moments before they could hear soft footsteps making their way towards the door. Both girls gasped when they saw who answered the door. Sakura? Ino? What are you two doing here? Naruto was exhausted by the time he arrived home. When he finally arrived, he placed the groceries on the kitchen table and made his way to his room. There he grabbed a pair of pajama pants and headed to the bathroom to take a shower. Once that was finished, he decided to get in some quality reading. He was a few chapters in when he heard the knock at his front door. Must be Inoichi, Naruto thought as he put the book, coincidentally Jiraiya's latest, under his pillow. With a sigh he got up and made his way to answer the door. Only to be greeted with Ino and Sakura gaping at him. Sakura? Ino? What are you two doing here? Sakura couldn't believe her eyes. The man, that she and Ino had spent a large part of the day searching for, was standing before him in all his half-naked glory. Naruto? The man looked at her and flashed her a smile. The one and only, babe. Sakura blushed at his comment and was about to say something before Ino interrupted her. Naruto, what are you doing here? I mean, this is a huge house. I'm here, he gestured to the rest of the house, because this is my house. Once again, both girls were openly gaping. Even Inoichi noticed the state his daughter was in. Looking back to Naruto he spoke. Hey Naruto, you didn't tell me that your lot was so small. I can probably be done with an hour, even without their help. So why don't you give the girls the grand tour while I get to work? Both were back the land of the normal folks when they heard the term, grand tour. Hearing this they turned to Naruto and applied the patented, Moegi puppy eyes jutsu. No man could deny whatever the user asked, and Naruto was like every other man. Fine, he said with a sigh, just be sure to take off your shoes. Both girls nodded and did as they were told. They followed Naruto into the first room of the house. This is my living room as you can see, Naruto said as he pointed to pieces of furniture and the large television, moving on. Next Naruto led them to his kitchen, where a large blue man was in the middle of greasing corning ware. This is my kitchen, the man you see there is one of my housemates, Kisame. The man in question looked up and said a simple, yo. Next, he led the girls to his bedroom. Opening the door he led them in and closed it. Before the girls was one of the largest bedrooms they ever seen. It seemed to be furnished with simple wooden furniture and the largest, fluffiest, looking bed the two have ever seen. This is my room, Naruto said hoping the girls would leave before they found something he didn't want them to. Neither of the girls budged. They just stared at the large bed. Ino, being the weaker-willed of the two, dived onto his bed, startling the fox that seemed to be sleeping. So soft, the girl practically moaned as she rolled a bit. Who the hell? Kyuubi groaned out as he stretched, only to see a girl moaning in his friend's bed. Turning from the girl to Naruto he flashed him a foxy thumbs up. Sakura, you got to try this, it's like lying on a cloud. Seeing the obvious pleasure her friend was in, she followed suit, much to Naruto's dismay and Kyuubi's amusement. Ino wasn't lying when she described the bed. Stretching she reached under the pillow and felt something. Rolling over she lifted the pillow to find a book. Seeing that it was open, she looked at the open page and began to read. The two young women finally caught the source of their affections. Tying Naruto to his bed, they began to strip him and themselves. Seeing their love's equipment, both began to feel flush. The girls had agreed that they would take turns with their lover. Sakura was to be the first, while Imo would be the second. Sakura felt her face become flush as she read the next few sentences. Quickly closing the book she looked at the cover. Icha Icha. A New Generation, was written above the author's name. Looking at the book then to Naruto, she could feel her rage rising. That little pervert, Sakura thought, make him bleed, inner Sakura demanded. Growling, she lifted herself from the godly bed and made her way towards Naruto, who was backing up slowly towards his door. Sakura, it isn't what you think. The boy said as he placed his hands in a placating manner. Sakura moved in a speed she didn't know she possessed as she nailed Naruto, sending him into his wall, causing a scream from the next room. My soufflé. Kisame burst into the room, with murder in his eyes, looking for the person who ruined his attempt at a foreign dessert. seeing Naruto lying under the point of impact and an angry girl rubbing her fist. Naruto obviously had done something to anger the inhumanly strong Kunoichi. He made a smart choice and quickly left the room. To say that Sakura was pissed would be an understatement. She was furious. The one man she always held a bit of respect for turned out to be a pervert like her old sensei. That and the fact that story seemed a bit odd. A shrill laughter pulled her from her thoughts of murder. Turning to the source, she found a small fox rolling on the bed next to her friend. That has to be the funniest shit I've seen in a long time. Fuck you Q, Naruto growled out as he pulled himself up. Ino just stared at the little fox. Naruto, why does your fox talk? He's kind of special for a pet. He seemed to have learned how to speak human. I'm not your goddamn pet. The fox screamed in its shrill voice. Whatever fuzz butt, now to continue with the tour. Naruto led the girls through the rest of the house. Leaving Kisami's room to their imagination, and Itachi's was open to show that he was indeed a Pocky fanatic if the empty boxes were any indication. Stopping at the last room, he turned to the girls. Well, this is the last important room of the house, he said as he opened the door. The door which led to a very simple-looking bathroom, which was finished in white with the basics of utility. A sink, a toilet, and a shower stall. Turning back to the girls, he could see the look of disappointment on their faces. What? Well, Ino was trying to figure a way to place her thoughts into words. We thought you would have some grand bathroom. Not something so plain. I expected you to have a luxurious tub. One that you could swim in, Sakura interjected. Naruto smirked, follow me. Naruto led the girls down a small hallway that ended in a door. Opening it revealed a small room that held shelves with some towels while a few were empty. The girls looked at the room with a puzzled impression. It's your linen room, big deal. Naruto smiled at her before gesturing to the door that stood across from them. Gesturing for them to open it. Sakura walked over to the door and slid it open. What greeted her was a sweaty, grinning Inoichi. Hey Naruto, I finished up. Naruto nodded to the older man, so what's the damage? No charge, as long as I get to use it whenever I want. Dad, what are you talking about? Ino asked. Inoichi turned and pointed, revealing Naruto's private onsen. Before them laid an onsen that was finished to look like a natural hot spring. It was easily the size of a small pond and its smooth surface was interrupted with large stones. It seemed to be fed by two small streams, one of which had a device placed in it to control the flow of water. You have your own onsen, Naruto? Asked Sakura, not believing her eyes. Well, he began to scratch his head in his normal awkward fashion. I kind of didn't plan to. 5 days prior, Naruto and Kisame were once again at work. It took them most of the day before, but they managed to eliminate the stumps the lot was filled with. Now they could start work on the foundation. Suddenly Kisame left Naruto and walked over to one of the piles of scraps the clones seemingly forgot to clean up and picked up a forked stick. This action puzzled Naruto due to the fact he had no idea why the man would need a stick for. Eventually Naruto had to speak. What's with the stick? I'm turning it into a dowsing rod, Kisame said as if it was common knowledge. What's a dowsing rod? It's a device used for finding water underground. Why do you need to find water underground? We're going to need it to drink. Why bother, we got a stream next to the lot. Kisame was beginning to get irked with his friend's stupid questions but started counting backwards in his head. Listen Naruto, that water from the stream isn't safe. Why wouldn't it be safe? Listen, you don't just drink water without taking some form of purifying it. Didn't your Junin sensei teach you this? I've been drinking from it all week. And you're lucky you're not in the woods recovering from the trots. Now shut up and let me work. Noticing that his friend had finally shut up, Kisame poured some chakra into the rod and began to walk slowly. He didn't take 5 steps before the rod started to point down sharply. Naruto, come here for a second. Naruto walked over to his friend to see what the man needed of him. What do you need? I need you to bore a hole in the ground with your Rasengan. Why? Quit it with the damn questions and just do as I say. Naruto looked offended at the comment but did as he was told. Charging a small Rasengan, he forced it into the ground, where it drilled a small hole. Naruto watched the hole for anything of interest but nothing happened. Bending down, Naruto looked down the hole but saw nothing. He bent farther and placed his ear near the hole. Now he could hear the sounds of water gushing from the hole. Next thing Naruto knew, his head was covered with near scalding, dirty brown water. Hot. Hot. Why is it so damn hot? Naruto screamed as crawled back from hole. Back to the present. So you're saying you accidentally found a pocket of hot water? Inoichi asked, not believing the boy's luck. Yeah, I looked like a damn lobster for half the day, and Kisame laughed his ass off the whole time. Sakura imagined Naruto with bright red skin instead his normal tanned, then imagined him with a pair of pincers instead of hands and burst into a fit of giggles. Naruto glared at the girl before looking back to Ino and her father. Seeing that we basically uncovered a hot spring, I decided to make my own onsen. Especially after the incident earlier this week. Ino and Sakura began blushing fiercely as they remembered seeing Naruto in the bath. Something Inoichi noticed. Grinning, he turned to Naruto. Incident? Naruto leaned into Inoichi's ear and whispered into his ear. The older man looked shocked, further embarrassing the girls. Well, that has happened before and I doubt it won't happen again. More the reason I want to use this one. Wouldn't have to worry about any more of those incidents. Well, I have no problems if you want to use it. Inoichi did the yes motion hearing this and started whooping. Ino just stood there, not being able to grasp that father could seem even more immature than an academy student. What about us, Naruto? Sakura whined out, can we use it when we want? Well, I guess you could, but I can't guarantee that no one can see you. I don't have any privacy walls. Sakura grinned and nodded. Ino just stared at her friend who seemed a bit out of character, while Inoichi looked at his watch and noted the time. Naruto, it's getting late and we should be heading home. Don't want my wife screeching at me now, do we? Mom doesn't screech. Ino screeched out, deafening anything in a 4-kilometer radius. Whatever you say, dear. Inoichi mumbled as he attempted to cover his ears. Naruto, we'll be leaving now. I'll be back when your trees are in. Naruto nodded and followed the three as they walked around the house to the front door. Waving them off as they walked down the path that would take them back to the village. Turning when they were longer in sight, he began to giggle perversely. Wonder what kind of situation Naruto has gotten himself into now. Naruto thought as he made his way to his room to continue his reading. It didn't take long for the three to reach the shop. The walk home was strange though. Inoichi gave Ino and Sakura strange looks as they walked, and denied it whenever Ino brought it up, and Sakura was acting stranger. She was what Ino thought as bubbly, something the serious Haruna usually was not. It was something Ino had to ask her friend about. When they had arrived, Ino grabbed Sakura and dragged her, bent on getting some explanations. What the hell is with you, Sakura? Why are you acting all weird? Ino hissed out. Sakura just stared at Ino with a hurt expression before she spoke. I don't know what you're talking about, I wasn't acting weird. Bullshit, you were acting like he was Sasuke all over again. Sakura heaved a sigh before speaking. Ino, okay, I'll admit I was acting strange, but it's for a good reason. And that would be? Don't tell me you forgot about our mission, did you? Ino paused for a moment. Oh shit. I totally forgot about the mission. You're saying? I acted like that on purpose, even going so far to convince Naruto to give us free reign of his bath. Ino was puzzled. Why would we need that? My dear Piggy, wouldn't you think it was weird if two beautiful kunoichi showed up at your door with no reason for being there? You would think something was up, wouldn't you? Ino grinned at what her friend had done. Sakura, you are a genius. Unknown to Naruto, the two Yamanakas and Haruno weren't the only other people who knew where he lived besides his friends. The two figures who watched him had done a good job of keeping themselves concealed as they watched the prior events unfold silently. Well, we've located the target, one voice spoke as it addressed its comrade. Now all we have to do is wait for the perfect moment to strike, the other said with a slight smile. Seeing that their target has gone to sleep, both turned and made their way to the village. The moon's light showing the headbands the two figures wore, a single musical note, on a background of dull gray metal. The next morning, Naruto woke to a strange sensation. It felt like a warm breeze in his left ear, but it wasn't strong. It also seemed to blow in a steady rhythm. Cracking his left eye open, he glanced to the source. There, lying on his other pillow, was Kyuubi on his back with his legs splayed open. I so need to get a camera, just for moments like these. Think of the blackmail possibilities. Naruto's thoughts were interrupted when he felt the call of nature. Getting up as quietly as he could, he made his way to the bathroom. Once he relieved himself, he made his way towards the kitchen. He could hear the snores emanating from his friends' rooms as he walked by in his quest for caffeine. Eyes still blurry from waking up, he stumbled towards the kitchen, totally oblivious to his surroundings. "Morning, Naruto," a cheery voice said to him as he passed the kitchen table. "Morning, Kakashi," Naruto grumbled out as he searched a cabinet for his coffee cup. Then something in his mind clicked, the coffee helped. Turning around, he saw Kakashi eating the remnants of Kisami's culinary attempts. Next to the man were 3 large duffel bags. "Kakashi, what are you doing here?" The man looked and answered with a mouthful of pastry. "The Hokage told me that your test for Junin rank will take place tomorrow at the arena at 9 a.m. You are to be tested against Hiyashi Hyuga in a straight taijutsu match." "Well, that's fine and dandy, but it doesn't explain those." Naruto gestured to the bags that lay at Kakashi's side. "Well, he did his imitation of a nervous Naruto. I kind of got thrown out of my apartment." "Really now? How did you manage that?" Naruto asked, waiting for the ridiculous explanation. "My landlady found my collection of books. Her being an extreme feminist that she is, said I was a pig of a man and she wanted me out. So I'm kind of in a bind. I was hoping, you being the nicest, most caring person I know, would find it in your heart to let me stay." Naruto just stared at the man and sipped his coffee. "Damn that Kakashi, knowing one of my weaknesses. Fine, you can stay, but you're paying for room and board. You can take one of the empty rooms. I owe you, Naruto." Naruto nodded to him and worked to finish his coffee. When he reached to pour himself another cup, he heard a knock at his door. Sitting his mug down on the counter, he padded his way to his front door only to find a tired-looking Shikimaru with a rather beat-up Kiba standing there. The latter sporting a large knot on his forehead. Behind them stood Akamaru, who was struggling under the combined weight of their bags. Naruto just looked at them for a moment. "What are you guys doing here?" Kiba was the first to speak. "Kiko kicked my ass out, so I need a place to stay." Naruto turned to Lazy, one of the duo. "You?" "I was staying with them." Naruto just heaved a sigh and let them in. "Take a room and you're paying for room and board." "Kiba, make sure your damn dog doesn't pee on my floors." "Hey, Akamaru's housebroken. Whatever, you guys know your way around here better than I do. Go pick some rooms." Both men nodded to him and made their way to their rooms, leaving Naruto to return to his coffee, but he didn't even get a chance to put it to his lips before another knock came from his door. "This is getting fucking ridiculous," Naruto thought as he stomped over to the door, only to be greeted by his perverted teacher. "Naruto, I need a place too." "Oh hell no," Naruto shouted as he slammed the door in the man's face, only to see him when he turned around. "My dear apprentice, your actions wound me. I thought you of all people would be the first to come to my aid." "Cut the shit, old man. What do you need?" The man looked defeated at the boy's words. "I need a place to stay." Naruto just gestured down the hallway and left, leaving Jiraiya to his own devices. Naruto now had a moment to enjoy his coffee. Taking a sip, his face scrunched up in distaste. "God damn it, it's cold." Hiyashi sat at his desk in his study, staring at the scroll that lay in front of him. Picking it up, he ran his thumb over the blood seal that held it closed. "I hope the boy surpasses every one of your expectations." Naruto just sat on his porch and stared at the moon. He always liked to look at the moon. It seemed to calm him down, though he didn't know why. He continued to stare till a voice pulled him from his thoughts. "Worried about tomorrow?" Naruto turned to see Jiraiya watching him. "A little bit. Boy, you'll figure a way to beat him. You always do. It's not in your blood to be defeated easily. Something that you picked up from your dad. That still doesn't make me feel better. Hiyashi is tough, and you know as well as I do that my taijutsu is seriously lacking. I may be one of the strongest ninjas in existence, but we both know that strength isn't everything. You're thinking about this too hard. Why don't you go for a walk and clear your head?" "Maybe I'll do that. Thanks for trying to put me at ease, old man." "Hell, don't thank me, you would have done the same for me." Naruto just waved him off as he walked toward the forest. "Okay, the target is on the move. You ready for phase 1 of the plan, Tayuya?" Kin stood on one of the trees that overlooked Naruto's home. A moment later her communication device crackled with life. "Ready here, just be sure to keep him in sight at all times. He's known for making all sorts of escapes." Tayuya replied. "Got ya, target is moving into the woods. Commence radio silence now." Naruto walked through the trees silently. He could hear the sounds of animals as they moved through the forest litter as he walked. When all of a sudden he heard haunting songs begin to play in the woods ahead of him. The music seemed to beckon for him. Who could that be? I thought this forest was off limits to all but me? Naruto thought as he moved forward. He kept moving till he heard something whiz through the air and a small thunk came from the tree ahead of him. Looking towards the sound, he caught the glint of metal. Upon closer inspection he could see a senbon with a small bell attached. Why do I feel a sense of déjà vu? Naruto thought as he reached for the bell. It started to ring as Naruto reached for it, and the world went black. Naruto woke up slowly and attempted to move, only to find that his hands and legs were bound. Flexing slightly, he hoped he could break the bindings, only to find his effort was for naught. Opening his eyes and giving them a moment to adjust to the darkness, he began to look at his situation. Seeing that his wrists were bound with what appeared to wire with chakra-suppressing capabilities, he looked at his body. Okay, I'm bound, lying in a small clearing in the woods around my house, and where are my goddamn clothes? Look, he finally came to, said a voice that came from his side. Looks like we begin the fun then, replied a voice from behind him. Straining his eyes, Naruto could make out the form of what appeared to be two women. He couldn't see their features exactly, but he guessed they must be around his age from their voices. When they finally stepped out of the shadows, he could make out their faces. They were the two girls that were with Ten and Tamari when he picked up his materials, but he didn't know their names. What are you two doing? Why the hell am I tied and where the fuck are my pants? The larger of the two spoke, Ku Naruto-kun. I would think you would enjoy the company of two beautiful women. Not when I have no control of my situation. Now let me go. I'm sorry Naruto-kun, but you're not being freed till we had some fun. Elsewhere in the forest, the owl sat in its tree as it scanned its surroundings in a search of meal. It didn't take it long to spy a small mouse as it dashed across the forest floor. It tensed, prepared to make its swoop when an inhuman scream shook the forest. Oh God, not that, anything but that, no.
That's all for now. If you enjoy this video, then please like, share and do comments.